and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I believe Tech 9 will do the halftime performance coming up on Saturday.
No.
During Avatar?
He will. During Avatar? On Saturday, it's Lil Jon.
Oh, yeah.
What? I said it's Lil Jon doing it on Saturday. Okay! Glad you're excited about it.
Ask me if I'm excited.
You excited?
Yeah! Stupid. You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours we've got you. Talking a lot of football today. Maybe mix in some baseball, but we'll see. Maybe. Probably not. 913-912-4810 is the text line. That's how you can get a hold of us and be a part of the show if you want to do that. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We will talk with Adam Teicher coming up in the 1 o'clock hour today as Chiefs' final practice of the ramp-up period taking place today. They will have a mandatory off day tomorrow, and then, as Andy Reid said yesterday, the pads will be put on for the first time on Friday. Let's go. Let's go. Pads on Friday. Get an opportunity of seeing a little bit more of these players that we're seeing cool highlights of. And Jerick McKinnon yesterday saying, yeah, I can't wait to put the pads on. I'll get to run the football. He said, what, I've ran it like 4 times so far in training camp because it's all passing right now. Just like the offseason, the OTAs, the mandatory minicamp, all of that stuff, those are passing camps. Training camp, the acclimation period, the ramp-up, passing camps essentially. Put the pads on, you can start running the football. You can start really blocking. You can start really seeing what the guys will look like when they're out there. So, and one of the things that I'd like to see, and I think a number of people are wanting to see, is a lot of talk about Deneric Prince. Put the pads on. Let's see what he does now. Now let's see what he does as a running back. Can he recognize the hole? Is he able to read what the blocks are doing? Is he able to use that high-level speed on a football field with pads, with players chasing him? We'll see. Isaiah Pacheco was able to translate those things that were non-pads related that people were excited about, and then we know ultimately what Isaiah Pacheco looked like. Deneric Prince, to me, is a big deal because I think the Chiefs need some depth at the running back position. We know what they have with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We know what they have with Jerick McKinnon. But Isaiah Pacheco is probably not a guy you would expect to play 17 games a year. I would lean towards the new. 1, he's a running back. 2, he likes to play physical. Mm-hmm. And typically physical running backs that are built like him aren't ones that would be able to play 17 games over the course of the season. Heck, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the way that he's built, isn't able to do that. Jerick McKinnon, if he were the bell cow playing 17 games a season, probably not. So those 4 guys who they have, I would really like to see Deneric Prince look good and play well and be a serviceable part of that group, because I do think the Chiefs will need all 4. I think this is since Kareem Hunt in 2017. So from 2018 to last year, have the Chiefs ended the season with the running back they started with? Like the starting running back in week 1 and the starting running back in the final game of the season. Because it wasn't last year. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the year for Kareem Hunt. It wasn't the next year in the Super Bowl year because they ended with Damian Williams. Maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire from week 1 to then the Bengals or the Bucks.
That's the only one I was thinking. But I mean, my memory of a running back in that game is Darrell Williams having a ball hit his face mask in the end zone.
Right.
So Clyde may have started that game.
Last year, obviously, Clyde, and then McKinnon and Pacheco. McKinnon 2 years ago in 2021. as the guy that was playing in the playoffs with the against the Bills, who he had an awesome game against the Bills, and then the Bengals. He should have carried the ball even more against the Bengals in that AFC Championship game. So you started with Clyde and ended with McKinnon. Started with Clyde, ended with Pacheco. Started with Kareem, ended with Damian Williams. You see the trend here with the Chiefs, and I'm going to go ahead and guess that even if you start with Pacheco, there will be plenty of games along the way that they're going to need a McKinnon or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a Deneric Prince. That's the part of when you put the pads on that I'm excited to see, because if they have that extra, if you don't, then hey, you know what you have. You got Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon. But if Deneric Prince can be somebody that could look like a Pacheco, well, now your running back room overall just got a lot better, and Edwards-Helaire could be the fourth guy of the four. Could be. So we'll see. But that's just one of the many, many things that'll happen when the pads go on, and they'll be, tackling and things like that. 913-912-4810. We will hear from Matt Nagy today. We'll see which players will be at the podium today along with Matt Nagy, but we will hear from the Chiefs offensive coordinator, and then we'll see who is there as well. But again, Adam Teicher coming up at 1 o'clock, our Chiefs insider from ESPN. Let's get into the show. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Justin Herbert signs a contract extension, 5-year extension worth $262.5 million. 193.7 of that being guaranteed for an NFL record $52.5 million annual average value until Joe Burrow signs his contract. Then Justin Herbert will be the second highest paid annual average value quarterback. We're seeing, 51, 52 for Lamar. What was Jalen Hurts, like 51, 51 and a half? 52 for Lamar, 52 and a half for Herbert, 53 for Burrow. Then if the Chiefs redo Mahomes, 54, 55, because it's going to be a while before a quarterback will then top that. Because Trevor Lawrence, Tua, those guys aren't going to get like, well, you're going to set the market. Well, you're going to have to prove that you can set the market. So if the Chiefs were to redo Patrick Mahomes' contract, so they, will stop with the Mahomes is now the 8th highest paid quarterback in annual average value in the NFL behind bleep, blah, 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 bleep, blah, blah. All these different guys, which is fine, whatever. And I do want to get into that of what the Mahomes contract is. We talk about it a lot whenever quarterbacks sign their contracts to see just how that relates to what the Chiefs were able to do 3 years ago, understanding that it is 3 years later now. There have been a number of quarterbacks that have signed their extensions, being Josh Allen and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson, and there's going to be Joe Burrow. There have been a number of quarterbacks. I'm probably missing a couple that have moved ahead of Patrick Mahomes, but there's going to be at least one more in Burrow. So we are talking about a 3-year difference in a booming market of quarterbacks and how much money they are getting paid and how much they're worth. And the understanding of going from, well, we're going to give the quarterback this and the running back this, to we're going to take what we were giving a good portion of the running back and funnel that into the quarterback now. So that backfield of quarterback, halfback, what that was equaling, whether that was like 60 mil or if that was equaling 40 million, instead of 20 and 20, we're now going 35 and 5. We're still going to sort of have that. We're just transferring the wealth. We're transferring the value. It's the trickle-up economics from the halfback to the quarterback. So it's, which is sort of how it works anyway. Exactly. So that's what we're saying. It's a booming market with quarterbacks. And so while it's fun to talk about, like, wow, look at the contract that Patrick Mahomes signed. It's amazing. It's 3 years later. In signing those. And this is sort of how it works. 3 years from Chris Jones, whatever he signs his contract, may not be a great example because there's such a gap between what Chris Jones wants and what's the third guy. 3 years from now, what's the wide receiver? What's the highest paid wide receiver going to look like compared to, last year, compared to 27, 28, 29? I know Tyreek at 30, but Nick Bosa's wanting $34 million per year before he shows up to camp.
He's probably going to get something pretty close to that. $30 million pass rushers are going
Yes.
to become a norm. I mean, especially as the cap continues to rise bit by bit, $30 million annually for the best edge rushers in football will not be an outlier. That will not be crazy.
No, and so when you look at looking at Leonard Williams for the Giants signed his contract in 2021 for $21 million annual average value, which is the third highest right now.
Khalil Mack is $23.5 million average annual value. He signed that deal ahead of the 2018 season, I believe.
Right.
He was 27 years old when he signed that deal.
Yeah, annual average value. T.J. Watt in 2021 signed for $28 million annual average value. This is now a couple of years later, and he's going to be, and that's the number one in the NFL right now.
Yep.
I was looking at defensive ends and not just edges because it's the whole outside linebacker. It's the outside linebacker, defensive end is now just edge. So
I didn't even notice the difference as I was looking at T.J. Watt, outside linebacker, Myles Garrett, defensive end. Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
Bosa,
Great.
outside linebacker. Khalil Mack, outside linebacker. Max Crosby, defensive end. It's edge.
They're all moving the same direction, more or less.
That's right.
Play the same general, I would say, on the edge of the defensive line.
Yeah, just look at edge rushers. And T.J. Watt, number one, an annual average value of $28 million. Nick Bosa wants to pass that by 6. Not 1, not 2, not 3.
Gotta be 4.
Not 4.
5 then?
Not 5. Hey, not 6. That's where Bosa wants to go. And he's probably going to get it.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's what he wants, and then the 49ers are sitting in like, let's go 30, 31. We'll go, because he's going to go, look, I'm going to get at least what Aaron Donald gets. He's a defensive tackle. I'm the best edge rusher in the NFL. At least the best edge rusher in the NFL that now is getting a new contract.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to get, 32, 33, 34. So at minimum, I think he's going to surpass T.J. Watt by $3.5 million.
I agree.
So that's just, the price of doing business. So 3 years later, yes, these quarterbacks now are getting much more money because that market has ballooned. Daniel Jones is getting $40 million. Like, it's an absurd amount of money that he's getting. Saquon Barkley's probably worth more than Daniel Jones, but that's besides the point. Certainly a different conversation. But Justin Herbert's deal is interesting for a few reasons. The $262 million, the guaranteed money, the annual average value, the records that are there, the immediate comparison to Patrick Mahomes always comes up. And this one that was written about it over the cap is very front-loaded with new money. That is the most new money for a quarterback in the first 3 years of the contract by $20 million. He's going to get $100 million in new money after 3 years. That's the most by $20 million. The previous record was $80 million. So that's interesting to me because we've talked about the Chargers and the Bengals and the cash flow.
Yes.
Of what do they do with the cash? How do you go here? How do you manage an owner that isn't liquid? Well, they managed it by however they managed it, but they're paying the money. And they are paying the upfront cash of, $100 million or so. Which, great. Great for Justin Herbert. That's fine. Patrick Mahomes, new money that he added after 3 years was not nearly what Justin Herbert's is. Mahomes was at $46 million. His new money at the end of the 3 years. So it's a 5-year extension for Justin Herbert. So, but the 5-year extension, it would be the first year of the free agent year. Because it's now 7 total years. He would have this year left and a 5th-year option. So you add in the 5th-year option, what the money he was going to get, the money he was already going to get this year, and he was going to get 0 in 2025. So all of that new money comes to $100 million for Justin Herbert than he would have got. For Mahomes, 2020 and 2021, because 2021 would have been his 5th-year option, and then 2022 would have been the 3 years. So all of that new money was $46 million more for Mahomes in those 3 years than what he would have got. $100 million for Justin Herbert. That's a massive, massive difference.
I bet Joe Burrow does not get that.
I would bet that as well.
I would bet $100 million if I could.
I'll bet $100 million that Joe Burrow does not get $100 million more, $100 million in new money in 3 years.
I bet that is not happening.
Now, when you look at the I guess the 5-year extension. So what would be the 7 years for Justin Herbert? The 7 years for Justin Herbert, new money ends up being it comes to $262 million of new money. Mahomes was at 208. $54 million over, the course of over 7 years, because it's new money. It's a 5-year extension plus the 2 years left. It's about $7 million per year, new money over 7 years. If you're talking about 3 years later, with where the market is going and what the salary cap is expected to happen, this isn't that crazy of a contract that it's like, oh my God, the Chiefs screwed over. Like I saw Andrew Brandt was like, the Chiefs should be embarrassed. We see these new contracts for quarterbacks. He deleted the tweet since then, but the Chiefs should be embarrassed that they actually signed the contract for Patrick Mahomes like that. But it's also ignoring the guaranteed mechanisms, which we've talked about a lot. That continues to be one of the more frustrating parts about the whole thing. It's the most
frustrating part about it for me.
Yeah, you're right. I don't even need to qualify it with one of.
It to me is the thing that gets under my skin, because it just means you haven't read some required reading to talk about NFL contracts.
Mahomes is going to get a lot of money. He's essentially, by the third day of the league year 2026, he's going to be $275 million guaranteed money. And that's a 5-year extension. Right? That's a 5-year extension, so 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. It's a 5-year extension, 7 years total. It's $275 million guaranteed dollars for Mahomes. You can even call it practical guaranteed.
It is. There may be a spot track definition for practical guarantees, like it has to hit a certain phrase or signpost. But in the spirit of the phrase, practically guaranteed, Patrick Mahomes has almost the last couple of years ended up being a little bit looser that are not going to matter. This thing was practically guaranteed. It's just some good math.
It's amazing.
It's just some good accounting. The spin-off of that frustrates me so much is just the Mike Florio genre of tweet that's just like, I can't believe they got away with it. And Andrew Brandt does good work, and the fact that he had the willingness to pull it down and say, hey, let me good on him.
You know what? Yeah.
Mike Florio's still covering the NFL. That's a long story. but when Florio tweets, if Patrick Mahomes is fine with helping to further feather Clark Hunt's billion-dollar nest, so be it. That's how I read it in my head.
Yeah.
That is a verbatim quote. First of all, Mike, this has nothing to do with Clark Hunt's money. Clark Hunt's money is going into there's a salary cap, dude. Far be it from me to sit here and tell you how great every billionaire is. Like, I am happy to sit here to tell you that John Sherman should pay for his own house. Like, I don't really want to do that for him. But this is a complete red herring. And yes, Mahomes is a steal for the Chiefs. He'd be a steal if they were paying him $55 million every single year. He would be outperformed. This is the structure of the NFL. This is just how it works. And Mahomes, if he's by the way, who got mad at Tom Brady for continuously taking a little less than he needed to?
Everybody credited Tom Brady. And I think...
How long was he the number one paid quarterback in football, Tom Brady? What percentage of his career?
I think like maybe 1 year.
Maybe a year, maybe a couple.
Yeah.
And it was a part of the legend for him. Mahomes got a decade of security on his first contract by his excellence, right? If he would have said, I want more money earlier for less years, the Chiefs would have had no choice but to give it to him. This is where the two sides negotiated and came together. Not everything has to be about if Lee Steinberg could have gotten 6 more pennies out of Clark Hunt's sock drawer. That's not what we're talking about here.
There are a couple of ways of viewing this. Mahomes clearly worked with the Chiefs in the structure to make it more viable for them to build around him.
Yes.
He also got a crap ton of money in the 5 years of free agency. So his 5 years of free agency after his 4th and 5th year would have been exhausted. So when he signed the contract, 7 years from that point, he was going to have $275 million guaranteed. That's essentially $40 million a year guaranteed. If Mahomes signed a 5-year extension worth $275 million fully guaranteed, people would have been losing their bleep. 5-year extension, $275 million fully guaranteed. Mahomes has signed a record deal. This is unbelievable. He's worth it. My goodness, the Chiefs. That's essentially what they did because of the guaranteed mechanisms. But they did it in a way, and Mahomes did it in a way to where there wasn't a lot of the upfront cash.
Yeah.
That was him making a sacrifice. Maybe that was to line Clark Hunt's pocket.
Fluff his nest.
Maybe, yes, a feather in the cap, whatever it might be. But it also created the flexibility to sign a Chris Jones, to sign other guys, to keep building around him. And he's never trailed in regulation in an AFC championship game in his career. He's been there every year. He's never trailed. Part of that is because he understands that people around him matter. He's also an alien from a different planet. I guess that would be by definition, right? I don't know. Is an alien from this planet? I'm not sure.
That's a good question. Yeah,
so,
he has to be from not this planet.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a different life form. All right, he has proven that there is more intelligent life form in other planets. Regardless, he clearly made some sacrifices along the way and gave the Chiefs flexibility to be able to do the different things. While Justin Herbert's new money is there in the first few years, he has no more options after the 2025 season. So Justin Herbert has a $51 million option next year. He's got a cap hit of almost $20 million, but a $50 million option, so they can drop that cap hit if they want to, sort of like roster bonus, signing bonus, different ways to disperse what could be.
You can prorate those and move everything around, and it's all cap math. The money stays the same, but the cap math changes.
They're calling it an option.
I don't think I've heard that get used in a quarterback contract before.
I hadn't either. I'm just going by the terminology that they're using. 2025, he's got a $45 million option, and that's a $37 million cap hit. The final 4 years, there's no flexibility in that unless they restructure the deal. Because Mahomes, again, roster bonuses that can turn into signing bonuses, which is the bulk of his contract. It's not just the base salary. It's the bulk of his contract, the bulk of what the cap hit is going to be that year, allows the Chiefs to move some money around if they have to. But after those options, choices of salary cap manipulation is over, in 2026, his cap hit is almost 50. 2027, his cap hit is almost 60. 2028, his cap hit is $71 million, which is essentially the year that they'll go, okay, let's restructure.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the kicker to restructure of $71 million. Mahomes is always going to have that ability to kick the can further down the road if you want to get in that sort of business of doing that. The Chiefs will always find the flexibility in his contract to sign a guy if they want to. If Mahomes turning a roster bonus into signing bonus next year, which he doesn't have a choice to agree to it. It's in the contract. The Chiefs can do whatever they want.
And it doesn't matter because the money's still his. It's just how the cap, that's a cap mechanism.
Doesn't matter at all.
Not making him wait 5 more years for $5 million.
If they look at it and go, we're going to move $3 million and extend that over 5 years because we're going to give that to Chris Jones, that's part of the reason why Mahomes did this, was to give him the flexibility to be able to do that. Justin Herbert has the flexibility until 2025. After that, it's not there. It's specific restructuring of contract, which people do all the time.
Yes.
You can restructure that. You can turn it into signing bonus. That's fine. It's just the built-in part of it makes it that much easier for the Chiefs so that they can plan for that already. Mm-hmm. Like the Chargers can't plan for, hey, what do we want the salary cap in 2026 to look like for Justin Herbert? Well, it's 46 right now. Okay, so 46, we've got 25 of that's a roster. We can exchange this. We can drop that number down. We can get that down to 38. So let's work in a range of 38 to 46. Okay, let's work in that range as we're trying to build that 2026 season. The Chiefs can do that right now.
Yep.
When they're looking at their salary cap the next 2, 3, 4 years, they can live in the world of a range of where Mahomes' salary cap hit is to where it looks like the whole team. That's the beauty of that. And it's going to continue to be the beauty of that. Mahomes did a lot for the Chiefs, has done a lot for the city. He's making a lot of people a lot of money, along with himself. But he also afforded the Chiefs the flexibility in the contract structure. Justin Herbert doesn't necessarily have that, but it is a surprise that the Chargers went that high of upfront new money in the first 3 years, because those are checks that are just going to have to be written.
And for the Chiefs deal and for Mahomes' deal, it took a decade-long extension for all of these mechanisms to work this way.
That's true.
It's why you're not going to see other guys copying it without. And the Bengals might be the team to do it. The Bengals really might be the team that says, "Hey Joe, listen, here's what we'll do. We've got a decade of more or less guaranteed security for you, but we're gonna steal this Mahomes copy." And we're going to say roster bonuses, so we don't have to pay it all out right now. We'll give you a big chunk of change right now, but then we're going to be able to we'll be locked into these numbers, but it'll give us some flexibility, and us as a cash poor team don't have to worry about, liquidating a yacht to make sure we can pay your salary. And you could commit to him as a guy still on his rookie deal who you feel good about for the long haul. You could sign him to a 10-year deal that you probably weren't going to give to anyone any older than guys at that point in their careers. So that's another reason that this is unique and required both sides being a part of it, because having a decade-long contract, that's a really long time. That's an outlier in the NFL. What a favor everyone here did.
When the Burrow contract is done, there will be 5 quarterbacks making $50 million annual average value. Let's take a timeout. Lebo says we need to break, so we're going to break now. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll hear from the Chiefs coming up around 11 o'clock. Adam Teicher, 1 o'clock. I want to get into the Trevon Diggs contract, how that affects maybe Chris Jones, maybe L'Jarius Sneed in a way. We'll take a timeout. We'll do that next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm here at the archery range with Brad McGee from LBA Home Services. Brad, ready to take your first shot?
Here we go.
Bullseye.
Naturally.
You make it sound easy.
It's not easy at all. It takes skill, experience, and commitment.
And then it looks easy?
And listen, it's like when you have a drain problem. You need the right equipment, and you have to know how to use it.
To get a perfect outcome.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to come back and clear out that drain again.
Of course not. And everyone at LBA thinks this way. Either we've done it perfectly, or we might as well not bother in the first place.
Pretty high standard.
When it comes to your drains, perfect is our minimum standard.
Ready for a second shot?
Here we go. Ah, no.
Did you miss?
Worse. It went right through my last arrow.
But that means...
I lose so many arrows that way.
One simple idea, one name to remember.
Just remember LBA.
LBAservices.com.
It's early on in the training camp process, but my fantasy drafting strategies have already evolved a couple of times, and I'm already drafting in fantasy. What? How do I do that? Oh, that's with Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy football, hosting the biggest fantasy football tournament of all time right now. Best Ball Mania 4 is $15 million in total prizes, $3 million to first place. And again, just getting back into the fantasy draft life has been awesome. I even hopped over and did a little NBA one just because, I'm excited. I'm excited to have fantasy sports in my life anytime I can get it. But right now, it's really the time. I was talking to somebody yesterday, also playing Underdog, and saying, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I think you're going to start getting some best ball value in this year. If he's out there all the time, yeah, maybe the week on, week off for him could be frustrating in your standard leagues. But in a best ball league, when you're gonna get the best performances in your starting lineup, one big week from MVS could be huge for your team. That's just a little strategy from me to you, but the best strategy is to start by playing on Underdog Fantasy. So what are you waiting for? Sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store with promo code Brisco, Brisco, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Brisco, Brisco. Must be 18 or over and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Hey, Kansas City, Stephen St. John here for Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee's always looking for new ways to save you money. Did somebody...
We talked about videos without pads on, and that's what's going on today with the shells, the small little shoulder pads, and the helmets that they're wearing. They'll put on pads on Friday with their off day tomorrow. But the highlights and the love that's going on in training camp that's been going on for about a year with Justin Ross. One-handed catch down the sideline over Trent McDuffie in 11-on-11.
Right in the bucket from Mahomes, too.
It was in the bucket, yep.
Great chemistry for 15-8.
Yep. And a pass down the middle for about 25 yards to Sky Moore, making an outstretched grab where, on the run, reaches out, grabs it, then tumbles a little bit because it wasn't necessarily in stride, but a great catch by Sky Moore. So I don't see an issue with the wide receiver group and Kadarius Toney at all because of these videos.
As long as we can just get, maximum Ross, I think we're in good shape.
That's right. 913-912-4810. Shout out to Bud Light with the training camp brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy our training camp coverage. Hopefully easy to enjoy as well.
Watch a Justin Ross highlight, have a Bud Light. It'll be easy to enjoy your day. I am confident.
Not wrong about that. 913-912-4810. So one of the things, before Justin Herbert and Trevon Diggs signed their contract, one of the things that I was going to talk about was the idea of Chris Jones playing out this year, franchise, and all of that stuff, which isn't necessarily that much of a realistic approach because of the $33 million salary cap number for next year. That would be essentially 2 years, $53 million the Chiefs would be paying Chris Jones, which he would like long-term security. But if you are looking at, what some of the newer contracts are for the, defensive tackles, I mean, Quinnen Williams' first 3 years is making $58.3 million. That would be 2 years, 53 for Chris Jones.
Yep.
So from that standpoint, it would be a massive amount of money compared to what the new contracts were. Now, Aaron Donald signed 3 years, 95, so you get the point. That was $30+ million. It's pretty much, guaranteed from that standpoint. So, if you're analyzing it from that standpoint, you would say, all right, so if that's even a possibility of playing out this year with $20 million and then franchise tag at $33 million and sitting at $53, well, to get sort of halfway between what the money is in the first 3 years of the contracts that were just signed and Aaron Donald, you need to get to about 80. So then you're looking at $27 million in year 3 for Chris Jones. So that's 20, 33, and 27 to get to 80. If you were even thinking about going down the route of franchise tagging him for 33, then adding the 27 and being able to equally disperse that doesn't seem like it's that crazy of an amount. And that's only in 3 years. That's only in the if we're talking about 3 years, because it would probably be a 4-year extension or a 3-year extension, so 4 years total if we're adding in this year being the year. So that is a route they can take. It doesn't seem financially smart for the Chiefs to do it, and Chris Jones also wants long-term stability. I don't think that's something that they will go the route of. Again, I think a lot of people are confident they will come to some sort of an agreement and it'll be an extension for Chris Jones and they won't get there. But I'd also like to have at least the option of the franchise or transition tag available for a L'Jarius Sneed. And we'll get into that in just a second. I don't know if that's something the Chiefs would do because it's like $20 million next year. I'm not sure they want to pay $20 million for L'Jarius Sneed in a 1-year deal. But franchise and trade if you don't think you're going to be able to reach the number he may want. But I just don't think that scenario where it was a real possibility for Orlando Brown it just makes no financial sense for the Chiefs to pay $53 million in 2 years when the going rate right now is about $60 million over 3.
And they would have quite little leverage, I think, around that time next year also, because, as you say, Chris Jones at that point would be getting the 1-year deal worth playing on as a defensive tackle. Yes. And the way, again, that the franchise math works, usually you're averaging those top 5. Well, if you are one of the top 5, you get a 20% raise. So there's never going to be a way in which you take a pay cut on the tag, right? So that's the extra little bit of math on that. The issue, though, then, even in another issue with that path, is that if they play out this year and they tag Chris Jones as soon as they're able to next season, now they're carrying that weight until they can either get a long-term deal done or move Chris Jones. Now, if you're trying to trade Chris Jones the next offseason, you're trying to trade a guy who, that contract would get worked out when the team took him on. But now it's a 30-year-old interior defensive lineman. And it's a guy whose value at peak tradability would have been when there was still a year of control on that contract, when you weren't trying to work around that $33-ish million. If you want to get him to play out that year, you want to talk about unmovable money? Franchise tag money is the most unmovable money that the NFL actually offers. Most other things, you've got a little wiggle room here or there. Not the case with the tag number. So if you tag Chris Jones, he plays out next year. He does get a great 2-year payday in this world. Well, now you've got very, very little to play with for the rest of your roster.
Yeah.
And if, look here, knocking on wood,
Knock on
not thinking that any of this is going to happen, but if Chris Jones has a serious injury or a major drop-off this year, I'll knock on wood before and after, like quotation marks, now we're safe. If something bad happens, then all of a sudden now the Chiefs maybe are saying, we're not going to tag you. We'll figure it out. But, I mean, if this is Tershawn Wharton's an interior defensive lineman who tore his ACL last year. It's not only something that happens to guys making big cuts on the outside. All of a sudden now this potentially huge 2-year payday or this big payday that could be there for Chris Jones right now over multiple years, it's sand in your fingers. I mean, all of a sudden, it does move that fast in the NFL for virtually anybody. The cliff that eventually shows up, it very rarely is softened by a nice, hey, thank you for what you've done. Here's an extra $10 million to rehab this year. So that to me is the biggest engine behind both sides still having their best case scenario to figure out a long-term deal right now. If they wanted to move Chris Jones before this last draft would have been the time to do it. They didn't want to move Chris Jones. They weren't shopping him. So here we are where I still think eventually we're going to see him in St. Joe this year.
I mentioned the franchise tag for one L'Jarius Sneed. It's $20 million for the cornerback next year. That is too steep for Sneed. And the Trevon Diggs deal that came down this morning, to me, essentially eliminates the option of the Chiefs going the route of, hey, we're going to franchise tag. We're going to keep the franchise tag available so we can put it on L'Jarius Sneed and sign him to a long-term deal. It's sort of a good news, bad news type deal. That's not happening. But it's also Diggs' contract is less than what the market evaluation was for him. The projected market was about $20.25 million per year. He's at 19.4. So almost $1 million less. But the big difference is, and this is where the Chiefs are going to get into a decision about L'Jarius Sneed. And this is something that I think is going to be that we watch throughout the season because it does connect to the Chris Jones contract. And that is the top cornerbacks in the league that, are paid. The top 29 annual average value cornerbacks are all primarily wide on the outside. L'Jarius would be the only one in the top 30 that even splits. Like you're talking about like 50 reps over the season playing slot for a lot of. Trevon Diggs, 96% of his snaps were out wide. The 30th highest annual average value contract is someone that plays the slot. That's Teron Johnson for the Bills. The 30th.
Interesting.
So he ain't getting 20 because he plays a lot of the slot. But he's also not getting 8 of Teron Johnson. So how do you find him and Water finding that level as it relates even to Chris Jones and others? Because that's a huge decision. And if the Chiefs already made that decision, that's what I want to continue talking about. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
I feel like every time I get to tell you about Greenlight Dispensary, I'm really just doing you a favor. Like, I'm telling you some great news about a great spot in the beautiful state of Missouri, like Missouri's best dispensary, voted that way numerous times by the people of Missouri. Yeah, that Greenlight Dispensary. If you've been hearing me talk about them and you have not yet been moved, I don't know what else I could tell you, but I'll tell you again with a smile on my face because I'm a huge fan of Greenlight Dispensary. They've got 4 KC area locations, and they have the care and quality and knowledge from their bud tenders that make the experience there always absolute top of the top. They've got great inventory, a huge variety, and you can check all of that online at greenlightdispensary.com. Maybe you've got something very specific in mind that you're looking for. Well, you can check it out there and see what if the menu at that location has it in stock. And if they do, you can order online and then go pick it up, either through the drive-thru or the grab-and-go window. We are living in the future, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. And if you want to check out the interior of any of these green lights, you certainly should, because, again, those bud tenders in the green light locations, you can ask them any question you want. Maybe you need to be led down the right path. Maybe you're not sure where to begin. Well, the bud tenders at Greenlight Dispensary will make sure that they've got a direction for you. Plus, we'll be out there again coming up for the first Friday and Saturday of every month. That's when Greenlight has the Underground. We're going to be broadcasting live out there this upcoming first Friday, just like we did last month as well. Not the 28th, but the 4th, because that's the first of the month of August. I double-checked my dates to make sure we were all on the same page. Greenlight Dispensary. We'll see you out there the beginning of next month for the Underground at the Independence location. But check them all out online at greenlightdispensary.com.
Hey guys, Matt Coker here from West Coast Men's Health to let you know that you don't have...
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll head to St. Joe when the Chiefs head to the podium or the tent. It's presented by Greengrass Cattle Company. Greengrass Cattle Company. Order online at greengrasscattleco.com. So we talked about L'Jarius Sneed, sort of connecting that to Trevon Diggs and the contract that he got, and then also looking at sort of how the Chiefs have used Sneed. What does that mean for his contract? Because the slot corner market is the way of the running back compared to the cornerbacks that play out wide. Charvarius Ward got 3 years, $40.5 million, roughly. So that would probably be the baseline for Sneed, but also Ward played exclusively outside. He didn't play in the slot. That's going to be interesting is because of the market being deflated in the slot corner, which I think is real value out there.
This is where I'm coming from.
It's total value if you're able to get that. The question then becomes, what does L'Jarius Sneed view himself as with somebody who brings pressures, somebody who can play safety, somebody who plays out wide, somebody who plays in the slot? He is positionless. He is the position flexibility that all the teams want, and it's a little Chris Jones-ish to put him into one category and say, well, Chris Jones is just a defensive tackle and that's it. Well, L'Jarius Sneed is a slot corner. Well, he is, but if you noticed at the end of the season last year, he switched with McDuffie. He played outside, McDuffie played slot. This year is going to be really interesting to see how the Chiefs utilize L'Jarius Sneed, because if they play him out wide, the ratio that they did at the end of the season and into the playoffs, well, then he's now going to be a wide corner on the market that's going to want that particular money. If he's splitting 50-50 and he and McDuffie are inside-outside, then it's going to be interesting what his market is, because it's a complete and total difference between the highest paid outside cornerback at $21 million and the highest paid slot cornerback at $8 million. I mean, that is just massive.
And the deal was a while ago for Kendall Fuller when he returned to Washington. So he's around $10 million average annual value. But again, that deal was before the 2020 season. I cannot get Spot Track's next page to load, so you're never going to know when exactly he signed that deal, I guess. But I think it's really a question of how the Chiefs see their value at the cornerback spot, because did they draft Trent? Did they not only draft Trent McDuffie, trade up in the first round for Trent McDuffie because they see him as being a guy who can counteract the trend in the NFL where you see more dominant receivers playing in the slot, because that's where they've been getting good matchups and they have more space to work with. You're not dealing with the sideline. It's a part where the NFL has really evolved a lot. I would say probably, I don't have the numbers on hand, but probably in the last 2, maybe 3 years. I mean, the league has changed pretty dramatically in terms of like seeing CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown is not Wes Welker, but he is dominant from that spot.
I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to work a lot in the slot, and he was the number 1 receiver taken in the draft.
So we are seeing an evolution there a little bit that I think is intriguing. It doesn't bother me, much like it didn't bother me when the Chiefs, we found out Juwan Taylor, that's right tackle money. Hey, man, that's okay. It's about finding that value. So I would value L'Jarius Sneed as a real, air quotes, cornerback, regardless of where he lines up. And I think he adds more value being a weapon from that slot spot as well. So, and I think Spags sees him that way. I don't know if Brett Veach sees him that way. That's a different conversation.
Exactly. And the other part is, look at how many cornerbacks the Chiefs have drafted and secondary players they have drafted. You mentioned Trent McDuffie, they moved up to get him, and he's moved into the slot, which is what Spags values that position a lot. Come up and tackle. Can you get after the quarterback? Those are the things that Trent McDuffie was talked about when he was coming. Guy is a sound tackler, willing tackler, wants to come up and make the tackle, really good. He can rush the passer, the things that L'Jarius Sneed is good at doing. Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, exclusive outside. Those guys played on the outside. Shamari Connor played a lot of slot as a safety at Virginia Tech. And when we talked about Shamari Connor's sort of attributes and athleticism and length and arm, it was pretty close to Sneed. And if the Chiefs are drafting traits and coaching those things into them, I mean, you question if the Chiefs have already drafted the replacements or replacement for Sneed's role, and they'll let him walk the way they did, and they let Charvarius Ward walk, and they just aren't interested in second contracts for secondary players. If they continue to get out of later draft picks those traits that are coached into productive players.
I think Steve Spagnuolo would have a long list of very nice things to say about L'Jarius Sneed. I think he would love to have him in his toolbox for as long as he's coaching. I don't know if the rest of the Chiefs agree with that.
I think he would have liked to have Charvarius Ward for a while. And they said 3 years, 40? Nope, not doing it. It was 3 years, 40. Diggs got 5 years, 97. We'll hear from the Chiefs next.
We've received your nominations to honor Kansas City's best players and coaches.
All right, we'll hear from the Chiefs today whenever they get to the tent. We know Matt Nagy. They are working on some special teams right now. The Chiefs are. And then some stretching. Then they will, the cool down session. Then they will head over to the tent. We'll hear from Matt Nagy, and we'll see who else will be at the podium. Did you say that Cole Kmet?
Yeah, Cole Kmet just got paid, and I'm going to have to actually do the math here. It's going to be close. Not because Cole Kmet's not a nice player, but because he plays a tight end position that Travis Kelce also plays. The report here from Adam Schefter. Bears and tight end Cole Kmet reached agreement on a 4-year, $50 million extension, including $32.8 million guaranteed and $20 million in new first-year cash, according to Adam Schefter. And is this pronounced Field Yates?
I believe it's Filed.
Filed Yates. Father of two.
Filed Yates.
So I just, my when I saw it was thinking, hold on now, is Cole Kmet making more money than Travis Kelce? And I'm not, the structure and where those guaranteed, that new money number is definitely more than Travis Kelce's adding this year, at least from the salary cap
So that would be
side of things.
12.5 per year.
Yeah.
On the extension.
Kelce's like just north of that, right?
He's 14.3.
Okay. Really?
He's number 3 in the NFL in annual average value. He's just $3.3 million behind Darren Waller.
So Cole Kmet does not quite get the Travis Kelce payday.
Cole Kmet comes in at the, what would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He would be the 9th highest annual average value tight end. Going down the list, it'll be Darren Waller at $17 million. This is just annual average value. We're not even getting into guaranteed, practical guaranteed, signing bonuses, all of that stuff, because all those details can come out later. But Darren Waller, number 1, $17 million. George Kittle, number 2 at $15 million. Kelce, number 3 at $14.3. Dallas Goedert after that at $14.2. Mark Andrews at $14. Evan Ingram in a deal he just signed at $13.7. David Njoku in a deal he signed last year at $13.7. Dawson Knox at $13. And then Cole Kmet and Jonnu Smith at $12.5. And Hunter Henry at $12.5.
Kelce's extension was 4 years, $57.25 million. Now that, of course, was signed in what day here? Let's go August 13th, 2020.
August of 2020, yeah.
So just about 3 years later, Cole Kmet signing a very, very similar deal, having accomplished slightly less.
But for $1.8 million less per year than what Kelce did 3 years ago. If Evan Ingram were to be the guy that surpassed, Kelce, that would have been like, all right, But Darren Waller and George Kittle, more than Kelce, it's not ideal because Kelce's the best in the NFL.
Yeah.
But at least those are guys, like if Dallas Goedert, had the same thing. Like if Goddard had more than Kelce, you're like, all right, it's not ideal, but damn, he's good.
Pass catching tight ends should get paid more. I'm for paying more tight ends. Yes. I just can't believe Travis Kelce's not a $30 million player.
Yeah, but if Cole Kmet were sitting at $14 million, it'd be like, all right, now you're just getting stupid.
Like eventually, it's like, listen, guys, you read the Vanity Fair piece, right? I mean, Kelce's been cool about it, but come on, Cole Kmet.
That's right. We were talking about L'Jarius Sneed and the cornerback room, Chris Jones contract. Whatever they end up getting done with him, will there be money next year for L'Jarius Sneed if they want to go down that route? We were talking sort of in the break that I don't think L'Jarius Sneed's going to be on the team in 2024. And I think part of that is the Chiefs are already drafting replacements. Shamari Connor, we talked about that. Trent McDuffie moving more to the slot. We discussed that. But it doesn't help L'Jarius Sneed, and probably is more empowering to the Chiefs of moving on and taking that money, what could be 4 years and $50 million, or 3 years, $50 million for Sneed or something like that, and dispersing it somewhere else, is that the Chiefs and Bengals in the AFC Championship game, L'Jarius Sneed played 2 snaps and got injured, and the Chiefs held the Bengals to 20 points. They won without L'Jarius Sneed. We know that for a fact. They would not have won without Chris Jones on the field. We don't know that for a fact, but we're pretty certain with the impact he made on that defensive line and helping others make an impact on that defensive line was clearly the force multiplier that he is, where the Chiefs were able to overcome L'Jarius Sneed And it wasn't that Snead was missing all week, that they game planned for him not being there. He was a big part of the game plan. He's taken out. Guys had to step into that game plan, and they still held him to 20 points. It's not great for Snead in terms of what the Chiefs would be willing to pay for him, because Snead will not be in a position where Chris Jones is like, yeah, sorry, Chris Jones has, to me, the leverage in this. Snead does not.
Yeah.
It's also empowering, I think, for the Chiefs in that Snead didn't play. Watson, Williams, Boodle, those guys had to step up.
Najee Johnson's apparently running with the ones at camp right now, and Watson and Williams are running with the twos.
20 points is what they scored.
I think the question for L'Jarius Snead's contract is going to be, is he a product of the Chiefs system, or is he making the Chiefs have this extra bit of dynamicism with him in the rotation, or as really one of the foundational parts of it? Rotation's not a strong enough word. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think they identified his skill set and went, ooh, we might be able to make a star out of this guy, bring him in here and have him in this role. I don't know how involved Spags was in the scouting process, but I mean, clearly that feels like a perfect marriage. They might see some of that in Trent McDuffie. They might see some of that in Shamari Connor that allows them to be flexible that way. And so I think that L'Jarius Snead he clearly will have earned whatever money he ends up getting wherever it comes from. And I think he could leave the Chiefs and have success somewhere else, much like Charvarius Ward, although very different types of players. Yeah. But I have also begun to move a little further away from the Snead extension happening. And frankly, if it's going to happen, they should be doing it now. Like this might be the window to get Snead done, so you don't have to worry about that franchise tag and everything. But more likely than not, the Chiefs are pretty happy with the stable they have at corner, and which might be the right word in that case, because they've got some dudes who can gallop, and that is a huge untapped resource the rest of the league does not seem to have, which is like, yep, give us your day 3 picks. We're going to get 3 starters out of this, and we're going to hold you to 20 points in the AFC Championship game.
Well, and the question about, okay, is Charvarius Ward a guy that in Spags' defense, the defensive line, whatever it might be, is he protected there? The safety play is pretty good, or is he a good player that will translate to other teams? And he signs the 3-year, $40 million contract, and he has a career year with the 49ers. From the PFF numbers, his defensive grade for the Chiefs in 2021 was 65.7. Last year with the 49ers was 83.2. A coverage grade of 62 with the Chiefs in 2021, 78.3 with the 49ers. Now you're going to a good defense, right? I mean, a team that's, got a good defensive line,
yes,
pressures the quarterback, safety play is good, linebacker play is good. It's a solid defense. But he still performed at that level. So he wasn't a product of, well, the Chiefs put him in right spots and they protected him. No, he went and excelled with the 49ers and earned every bit of that contract. I just don't know the Chiefs. I don't know that the Chiefs and Brett Veach are ever going to be in the market of paying premier money for a cornerback that also plays the slot with a market that is as deflated as the slot market is, because they didn't pay what wasn't even premier money for Charvarius Ward, who they had in their system. And they were going into the offseason with essentially Rashad Fenton and L'Jarius Snead. They couldn't match 3 years, $40 million to make sure that their cornerbacks were not Fenton and Snead heading into the draft. Wasn't worth it at that point. And they got away with it.
And they are better equipped for a decision like that now, because we do think at least there's something legit to Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams. Like, we've seen a little evidence of that, way more than we had straight out of the draft.
Which, if that's the case, then it allows McDuffie to play the slot, which is essentially what L'Jarius Snead was doing a lot of. And if McDuffie can't play the slot, Williams and Watson don't. So then you're relying on L'Jarius Snead to be that guy. He becomes more valuable to your team. Watson, Williams, if those guys excel, and McDuffie in the slot, those 3 guys are your corners, makes it a little bit easier for them to move on. If you say, well, then Shamari Connor can be the reserve guy there, and if something happens on the outside, McDuffie can move out there, Connor can slide in and play the slot. You've got a backup from that standpoint, somebody with the traits, maybe not the overall instincts or the level of play, because L'Jarius Snead is not just somebody that you put into, a spreadsheet or some sort of a computer program, and then it spits it out like here's the arm length and the athletic. Like he still has to be able to go and play football. He has to be able to read all of those things, He just has to read those things and everything. I think I may have just repeated myself a few times because I was listening to the comments there at Arrowhead Stadium. Nick Bolton not out there today. John Ross was excused. Nick Bolton was sick. John Ross excused. Isaiah Moore, linebacker, also did not practice today or was not out there at some point. But Chris Jones, Kadarius,
Tershawn Wharton, Kadarius Toney,
Tershawn
Chris
Jones,
not there as expected.
Bolton, Moore, and Ross. So
Nagy next, I think. But that's just the injury update from St. Joe.
Listening and talking at the same time.
It's tough. I mean, people sometimes do like that speech jammer thing. It's just your own voice slowed down in your ears. That's really what it is.
I'm gonna have to go. I want to go back and I want to go back and listen to see exactly what I was saying while I was listening and writing things down.
I'm usually a one ear cup on, one off guy, so I have. But at that time, I had both ears on, and so I didn't even hear what you said. You could have said anything.
All I could hear was Drake talking in my ear with the background of Ted Cruz talking while I was writing stuff down, while I was also saying something. I'm not really sure. It might have been Will Ferrell in Old School where it just blacks out and you wake up, what happened?
Hey, it's a knee for Isaiah Moore.
Isaiah Moore, okay.
There's a knee for
He's
him.
got a knee. Herm Edwards used to give the updates. He's got a little bit of a knee. Does he have two of them? I hope he's got at least one.
For Kadarius Toney, that's a legitimate question.
Yes.
We need to get an actual diagnosis of what he does have.
That is true.
It'll be interesting to hear from Matt Nagy. I won't be the first time as a chief or anything, but first time like being out there in training camp and him as the OC and
wide receiver questions.
Wide receiver questions. Saw him a little bit in quarterback, sitting next to Patrick Mahomes, working through some things. It was kind of interesting. Wonder if he goes visor for training camp or not.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Because he's a visor guy, but I feel like if you're at training camp as a bald guy wearing a visor,
not smart.
PSA, not smart. You need full coverage.
Bucket hat.
Yes. Oh man, if Matt Nagy shows up at the podium here in a visor or bald headed, I'm going to tell Lebo he has been derelict in his duties. He needs to get to Matt Nagy.
It's a straight call out.
Yeah.
Or it's Matt Nagy just calling Lebo out.
Yeah. You know, Lebo.
You know what a real man does?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Get skin cancer on his scalp.
Real man. That's what he does. I had somebody say that I wasn't a man because I had an umbrella once. It's like,
really?
Are you serious? He's like, well, I mean, you don't need an umbrella. Like,
look at me, real cool, soaking wet.
Yeah.
I'm a sloppy boy.
Real men get pneumonia. They fight it with no medicine. That's a real man. A real man would rather go to his grave at age 25 than use an umbrella. It's odd. Yeah, bucket hat for the win. That's probably what you should be going
with. Or Matt Nagy should start actually coaching with an umbrella over his head. That, to me, might be...
You know what? If he had the visor with a small little umbrella that covered the top, that'd be badass.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the route to go if you're Matt Nagy. Just really be completely, totally secure in your skin.
What if he comes up with hey, Lebo, I got an idea for you. Bucket hat with a little propeller on the top.
Yes, come on.
If it's an umbrella for the sun, I think it's technically a parasol. Correct?
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm going to Google. Drake, I'm not going to be able to see the live stream anymore because I'm going to open a new tab so I can Google. So I can Google here difference between umbrella and parasol. I always think of a parasol as being like wood and paper. Being a very kind of like a dainty umbrella that wouldn't survive the rain.
Yeah, I don't think of a parasol. So
it's because you're a real man.
Yeah.
You know what I eat for breakfast? Sunlight, UV rays.
Here's Matt Nagy.
Cool. What are you guys hot? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
First getting back at OC, just what's going through your mind? How you feeling?
Yeah, it's really fun. It's great, because you get into the OTAs like we had. And you get going again, you pick back up, and the players have been phenomenal. Just the mental side of it, getting into the scheme stuff. Coach Reed always likes to keep things fresh. So for us as a staff, and then you come here, and I think it's an amazing setup here. The fans are great, the people are great, the players come in with a great mindset. They also know what they're about to get into with Coach Reed's camp. We kind of gave them a preempt in OTAs, but they're handling it well. And you have some mistakes here or there, but I think the biggest thing is the effort there, and it is.
We saw some of those creative plays today. I mean, we've seen that, Pat and Kelsey, they got their their say about what they want to do. What kind of say do you have?
I have a little, but it goes to two people, Coach Reed and Patrick, and Kelsey's got a little sprinkle too when he wants to, if Coach decides that he wants to listen to him. But we have a good time. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there's so many plays in this playbook, and we like to be able to keep the fun in practice with the players, keep the fun in the games, as long as they know how to, if you have somebody do something they're not necessarily always used to doing, do it the right way. And I think that's the beauty of Coach Reed in this offense.
You always think with a new offensive coordinator, there's a new language, new words. But you've been here, you were coordinator, then you left, and then you came back, and then you were. But do you have new words in this offense? Are there things that are tweaks for you now that you're back in the saddle?
There's a few things, but honestly, that's every year, regardless of who the coordinator is. I think that's, again, I go back to Coach Reed where this all starts. In the end, his mind every season is always going to new things. We want to be able to do the stuff that works, but the creativity of Coach with that beautiful mind board in his office is what's so cool for these players and coaches. Myself, there might be some things here or there that I have an idea with, or another coach has an idea that we didn't have that was on staff last year that he didn't have the idea last year, and it comes in this year and we tweak it and change things, and I think that's kind of the beauty of this offense.
Lane's over there talking to Vahe. How quickly is he picked up?
It's been really, really good to have him in here and see. I've been impressed. I haven't told him this yet, but I'm really impressed with how well he's picked it up. Now, he's been in some offenses over the years. He's been in this thing a long time, and there's several different languages to different offenses across the league. And so once you're able to translate what our words are in our language, you kind of word associate with what you came from. He's been phenomenal with it.
What are you missing with Kadarius not being out here?
Say that again?
What are you missing without Kadarius being out here?
Well, probably the biggest thing would just be some of the timing, the experience with Pat, and getting some of that timing. But we were able to get some of that in OTAs, and for Kadarius, his mindset coming in, I know it was quick, but coming in here that first day and those first couple meetings, being locked in with the stuff, and we'll get him back, get him healthy, and get ready to rock and roll.
Matt, you mentioned the timing. We'll get Richie James here in a minute.
Yeah.
Where is he in the offense and picking up that timing?
Richie, doing well. I mean, you can tell he's been in other offenses. You can tell he's been in this league. I think he's 27. He's been around a little bit. Some of these wideouts, when they have a feel and they know the timing with the quarterback. They understand the defense. They know when to speed up their route. They know when to slow down their route. They know how to play in zone. He's got that. You also have to have that confidence, and I'm excited to see what he does this preseason.
Difficult not to notice the amount of time that you guys are providing Justin Ross with Pat.
Yeah.
What led to that decision? How do you feel he's done so far?
Well, I think it's going to be fun this preseason to see the amount of players and competition that we have in that room. They come in different sizes, and he's one that's a bigger wide receiver, but when you watch him, he really excels at route running. So last year, it was almost kind of treated like a redshirt year for him, and mentally being in the meetings, now physically coming back out here and doing what we said is learning his timing, for Pat to understand how he runs routes and for him to understand how to run the routes. So it's going to be immense growth for him in a good way. I relate it to Sky Moore. Sky Moore last year came in, man, he was just drinking out of a fire hydrant. There was a lot of stuff coming in at him, and you can't play fast it's hard to play fast as a rookie. Now you get a second year, and it's somewhat that way for Ross.
With Pacheco, one thing he just seems to excel, he doesn't get stopped at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
He seems to always get some yards. He was better at that even than Kareem was as a rookie. What leads to that? What gives him that ability?
Mentality. I mean, you see him, he's out here. We were joking about it. I mean, he's so angry right now that he's not in here running reps in practice, so he's getting extra work. And this guy, man, he is going all the time, and you say to yourself, is it ever going to stop? Where you catch him one time where he doesn't have that mentality, and it's 24/7. So that's in his DNA. He's got that, and when you're you run with the football in your hands, and you have that mentality, man, it's hard to stop.
Matt, early impression on two guys, Rasheed Rice and Matt Bushman.
Yeah, well, Bushman, I'll start with him. He what an OTAs he had. He did a really good job in OTAs. Guy doesn't drop the football, and he's always in the right spot at the right time. We say he's just slow enough, to be in that spot. And then Rasheed, everybody wants to know. We all want to know. I mean, again, you look for baby steps of growth learning this offense. You want to talk about drinking through a fire hydrant for Rasheed coming in here. He comes from a no-huddle offense, but yet it's a little bit different with the tempo of here and now a huddle play, getting to the line of scrimmage, running your route, having conversions with it, and yet being on time, jogging back and doing it again. He came in phenomenal shape here to this training camp, and I think every day he's made incremental improvements, and again, it's exciting for us because the sky's the roof with his talent.
Last two in the back. Nick
Just generic Prince. He was getting a lot of work in 7-on-7 today. Just kind of, what are you thinking about him?
Yeah, he's had a great camp as well. I mean, he's somebody that, again, in OTAs we were able to see what he could do. It's more of a passing camp in OTAs. Now we come out here and it's kind of a continuation of that. What I'm excited for and what we're excited for is to be able to see him put those pads on and see what he does between the tackles.
Matt, for you being offensive coordinator, what type of mentality or mindset are you trying to instill in these guys during training camp for what's going to be coming out?
Finish, finish, finish. I mean, we harped. I mean, these guys, if there's one word that they hear every practice, when we're watching tape, when we're out of practice, every coach, every player is yelling to finish. And you guys see it when these wide receivers are downfield. Every now and then you see Kelsey and you hold your breath because he kind of acts like he's going to throw the ball back to the next guy. But we practice that stuff, getting guys to finish to the ball. It's a mentality, it's an attitude, and I think it's what's helped over all these years. Good? All right, take care.
All right, there's Matt Nagy. A lot of stuff covered there from Matt, which we will get into and break down and talk about when the press conferences are over. But a lot of talk about Justin Ross and different things. I believe we'll hear from Richie James coming up next as new number 17 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's Richie James.
There's going to be some fun plays out there for all kinds of creativity. Does that challenge you?
I don't know. I played quarterback in high school, so I don't think anything really challenges me as much.
Speaking of high school, Sarasota guy, man, this heat doesn't do much for you, right?
I don't know. I thought like that until I got here. That humidity is real. I ain't gonna lie to you.
What did you hear about Andrew's camp before you came?
Brutal. As a receiver, it's brutal for sure. We run a lot, so yeah, you got to keep that wind up for sure.
I asked Coach Nagy about how comfortable you look in this offense. He said that you look really comfortable. How comfortable do you feel?
I'm pretty comfortable. Now I've been in the league for a while now, so I got a chance to play in different offenses. So some of the things similar, some things not. But you hear certain terminology, but I'm starting to get more comfortable as we go along in camp.
Richard, what do you think you bring to the table as a potential punt returner for the club?
Punt returner. I mean, that's what it is. I just get. Say it again.
What's been the messaging from Dave Took so far in some of your looks?
The messages, or
yeah, just as you guys go over film together.
just details. Catching the ball, looking the ball in. When we setting the return up, looking left or looking right. Just little minor things. Just letting you play it for the most part.
Rich, what's your overall impressions of the receiving corps with Sky and MBS? Just meeting them, getting getting a rapport with them on the field. How's that for you?
It's cool to watching them play, and then it's even better to play with them. You see they have that dog mentality, that killer mentality, and it kind of makes you have that same mentality. So.
Richie, what did Kadarius tell you before you signed him? Or did you talk to him beforehand?
Nah, he didn't know, but when I did get here, he's like, okay, that's my twin right there, so we good, yeah.
Does it feel like, you've had the few couple years in San Fran, and then you went to New York. Does it feel like the best is yet to come for you?
Oh, yeah, I'm always progressing. I always feel like, I got to get better regardless. The older I get, the more technical I got to get. So, I'm not going to always be as fast as I used to be, but I got to get that technical down real quick.
You played in the Mike Kafka offense last year, right? Did you notice similarities here than what you had last year?
Some. It's like 10%, to be honest with you. I mean, there's so much going on in his offense, so many moving pieces. But it's like very little, very little.
What impresses you, though, about Patrick, who's known to talk to receivers and basically say, this is what I want, stay live, I could end up over here, I want you live over here. What impresses you, or what have you seen in him that may be a different quality that, you like, that might challenge you?
He's not going to take the easy throw. He's going to take the hardest throw. So when he get in that huddle, he's saying, everybody stay alive, like you said. And you better stay alive because that ball might be coming to you.
And he's going to take the one that's the hardest?
Oh, he'll take the hard throw every time. He's challenging himself.
A few more.
Reggie, I believe this is your first training camp away from the usual team facility. Is that right? What have you noticed so far about being in this sort of environment compared to training camps at the normal facility?
I would say it's harder to get to your family because we're so far away. Obviously, we're in college dorms, so you know how that goes. That explains itself. But it's cool. It's a mental challenge that you really want. You don't want to, get too comfortable, and it makes you uncomfortable by just being out here.
What's the worst part of the dorm like?
Come on now, you sleep in a twin bed, or you sleep in a 7-foot tall bed. So that explains itself.
You're not bringing in your own mattress.
Yeah, you do, but come on now, that ain't going. I ain't spending $400 on a sleep mattress or something. I don't know.
So what are you doing for fun then? Are you playing Madden? Like, what are you guys doing in the dorm for fun?
My game haven't came yet, but when it does, I'll be on Call of Duty. Don't worry about it.
Are you Xbox or PlayStation?
Come on now, PlayStation.
Last one. All right, I know Kadarius is out right now, but what do you just think about the depth of the receiver position right now on this team?
We got a lot of depth. We got a lot of good players inside and out. We got a lot of moving pieces. People can move inside, they can move outside. I think we're talented, to be honest with you. I think we're a really solid group.
Thank you, guys.
All right, there's Richie James. Maybe the most interesting part of that is talking about the connection with the Mike Kafka's offense, 10%. I believe we'll hear from Creed Humphrey here in just a little bit. Here's Creed.
Yeah, first 4 days have been really good. It's been good to get back to work with everybody and, just enjoying the time right now.
Nobody seems to mind this heat, and it's going to turn up next week.
Yeah, this isn't too bad. I was training in Oklahoma, and it was pretty hot down there, too, so, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, they honored you down there in Oklahoma. Just what was that experience like? And then you got the bull riding too here. So what's the offseason just been like for you?
It's been an interesting one for sure. But the main focus is still training, getting better for the year. So it's been good, balanced it out really well. I feel like, and I feel like I came back in good shape and everything. So.
With all the new additions of the O-line, just how are you guys coming together so far in training camp, and what are you seeing from them?
Yeah, they've been great so far. Everybody's been really eager to learn. Everybody's been really eager to grow together, build chemistry together. So it's been really good. I say this all the time. When you got 5 guys up front who have the same mindset and everything like that, it's going to lead to good results. And I feel like they did a good job bringing in guys that have the same mindset as us.
I think the Pats come on Friday. Can you explain what the excitement is when you do have that first Friday practice? And then can you explain the grind when it's day 2, when it's back-to-back and pass, which you obviously won't do in the regular season?
Yeah, that's the beautiful part about camp is it builds mental toughness. So it's something that you fight through on those days that you don't want to go, but it makes you a better player for it. I think everybody's really excited to get the pads on. It's a lot more fun playing football with pads for sure. I think everybody's really excited for Friday.
Who was the most excited last year on the first day of pads?
Trey Smith. Because he gets to hit people when he has pads on.
Do y'all give him, like EB talked about his big head? Do y'all talk about that too?
Nah, we stay away from that.
When you're run blocking for a guy like Pacheco, who is just so physical, doesn't get stopped in the line very often, do you have to have a different mentality? Do you have to have a different approach knowing you got a guy like that running behind you?
No, mindset stays the same. You're trying to move your opponent from point A to point B. So no matter who's behind you, that's your job, and you're trying to dominate the line of scrimmage. So it doesn't really matter who's behind you when you're doing that. The objective's the same.
You measure shoes when you have a guy like that, though, that you're blocking for, that you know is always running hard and doesn't get stopped?
Yeah, it's the running room we have is great, man. Having guys like Pop, having guys like Clyde, Jet, it's been a great room. All those guys feed off our energy, we feed off their energy. So we worked really well together so far, and it's been a lot of fun.
Have you had a chance to catch some Daenerys Prince runs?
Yeah, excited about him. Yeah, he's looking really good so far. Big, physical, fast. He's got some talent.
A little different than Pacheco's running.
I can't really say too much. I'm trying to block my guy. So.
Reed, on the other side, what are your early impressions of Charles?
Yeah, impressed with him. I got to play him in college when he was at Texas, so I've been impressed with his game. He's a good player, plays hard, plays fast, has a really good motor, long, some good moves too. So yeah, I think he's going to be a good addition for us.
You got 2 new tackles this year. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on them? I know it's early on, but for Jawan and
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, both guys came in eager to learn, ready to get after it, ready to get better, and ready to grow as a unit. So when you have guys that come in with the same mindset like that, good results tend to happen. So we're really excited about them, and it's been fun so far being able to practice with them and get to know them.
A couple more guys. Let's go Harold, and then we'll go Nick to close out. Go ahead, Harold.
When you've worked with guys like Trey and Joe for a little while now, it's always interesting to find out what more you can learn about each other. What did you continue to learn about those guys as you keep moving forward?
Yeah, the way we communicate, the way we don't have to communicate as much. We're on the same page quite a bit now. We've been playing. This is going to be our 3rd year together. So, just playing with guys like that, everybody feeds off each other really well. You got Trey setting tones, you got Joe setting the tone, I'll set the tone, and we kind of make it a competition throughout the game about doing stuff like that. So, it's been a really fun group to play with, and I'm just excited to get back to work with them.
Creed, getting to be a part of Online Masterminds a couple weeks ago. What was the experience like, not only teaching, but what did you take away that helps you in the field there?
Yeah, it's a great event to go to. I think we had over 250 people this year. It was a great learning experience, man. You get to just pick brains of so many different people, so many great players, and it's always a great time. Get to watch a ton of film. See different defensive players. All their great rushes, all the moves they can set up, the tomfoolery they show, things like that, just swiping hands, doing so many different things, and just the way guys combat that, and it's really cool to see, different approaches to the game, but kind of lead to the same objective and same goal, though. It's really cool to see, and it's always great to get, different perspectives.
Okay, thanks, Creed.
Yep. Thanks, Creed.
All right, there's Creed Humphrey. Does not like the defensive line's tomfoolery. All right. No more ballyhoo by these defensive linemen.
I know I got some names to learn, but I don't even know what number tomfoolery wears.
No, Carl Loftus is going to be at the podium here very soon. I believe here is Carl Loftus.
Is that cool?
It's been going pretty good. We have a great group of guys. We have guys that have had some experience playing, a lot of new guys, some young guys, so it's been great.
George, without Chris here, I know that's got to be something for the defensive line. How are you guys all collectively trying to learn with each other?
Yeah, just as a group, we've had a lot of guys that have played a lot of ball. Starting with Derek Nottie and Mike Dana. I played some ball. Charles Menahue. Just when you have a guy like that and he's not here right now, you got to fill that void as a collective. So that's kind of what we're doing.
George, what was this offseason like for you? What did you want to improve on most from your rookie year?
Just everything. An all-encompassing approach and really not leaving a stone unturned. That was a big thing for me, and just some self-reflection and trying to improve in every possible way I can, so I could be an all-around great player like I want to be.
Is that the defensive motto? Defense rock solid?
Yes.
Is everybody got a shirt like that on defense?
Every defensive player does. I was wearing a white shirt underneath, and it's kind of see-through, so probably should have put this shirt on.
What did you take away most, George, from working with Tom
Mamma mia. I mean, Tamba taught me a lot. He, from a mental perspective, physical perspective, pass rushing, run stopping, the mentality, just a lot, man. I'm grateful for him. He's been a great friend, a great mentor, and I'm always looking forward to working with him.
George, it looks like with Frank's departure, Mike Down is going to step into that role. What do you expect from him, and maybe a role where he's going to be getting more snaps?
Mike's a baller, man. Mike can really play. Everybody's always been confident in Mike. He's a guy that does everything right, on and off the field. You could always trust and depend on Mike. So whenever he's next to you, whenever he's on the opposite side of you, that he's going to hold it down on his side. So I'm super excited. Obviously, Mike's a phenomenal player, and I think he's going to have a great year.
George, Chris is the leader on the defensive line, right? What do you guys missing from him not being here?
Just like I said, that veteran presence, obviously, his accolades and what he's done speaks for itself. He's one of the best, if not the best, defensive player last year. So, there's a little bit of a void there, but we try to fill it as a collective. We have guys that have played a lot of ball, and try to fill that void and kind of be all united.
Second half of the season last year, pretty much any metric across the board, you were one of the best edge rushers in the league. How do you feel like you can build on that? What are you taking from that second half of the season, and what really kind of clicked in for you?
Yeah, I think after a bye week, for me, there's a point where you just kind of look yourself in the mirror and you start figuring stuff out. You take a step back, you focus, you talk to people, you have epiphanies or eurekas or whatever, and you figure it out. So that started happening. You just build on that. You know, feel a whole lot better, both physically and mentally, being out here on year 2, and I'm just super excited to hit the ground running with these guys, man.
Was there any big epiphany that you look back on last year you took away?
I mean, not specifically. No, you know, the playing defensive line and defensive end is a very technical position, so you always have to keep on working. I don't think there's a single guy in the league that's like, no, I'm done. So you just got to keep on working on just about everything. You just figure out a way to do it more and more consistently. You know, it's the truest measure of a man's mental toughness, consistency. So.
Last couple years,
Yeah, George, you're one of the few guys up there that's wearing sweatpants today in that heat and humidity. What type of mindset are you taking out there to challenge the heat and not push yourself to the limits?
What heat are you talking about? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know, I just figured I did this all OTAs, and in the game, you got to wear the pants, and then you got to wear tights underneath because of the NFL rules and all that stuff. So just more to get used to that rather than anything. Get some more sweat off and all that stuff. So.
Are you excited about pads Friday?
No one.
Wearing pads.
Yes. Oh yeah. So excited. So excited. It's gonna be great.
What's that first day about pads like? Just in the NFL.
It's like the game. You know, it's like it's the real thing, and you know, that's where the real guys are going to show out, and it's always really exciting. So,
thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, there's George Karlaftis. Mamma mia!
Mamma mia! What heat?
Oh, mamma mia! Mamma mia! Mamma mia, Karlaftis.
I've been spending several minutes now seeing if there is any sort of tambalia, and it's just there's too many syllables. It's too many syllables for tambahalia. Tambahalia, halalia. It's too much.
The O-line has a tight end set aside for me.
Dun, dun, dun.
For me.
Dun, dun, dun.
For me. Let's break. What's on next?
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com. In the
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 1 o'clock. Chiefs Insider. We heard from Matt Nagy. We heard from Richie James, Creed Humphrey, and George Karlaftis. Love that Creed was asked, who looks forward to the pads? Trey Smith. He gets to hit people.
The only answer where Creed was answering the question before the question was done. It's like, Trey. No, it's Trey Smith.
That's exactly right. Talk a little bit about Matt Nagy and some of the things that he was discussing with the wide receiver group, because that's a lot of what he was asked about. Some Pacheco stuff, but Kadarius Toney, what he's missing, and just said, the timing. They got some of that at OTAs and working with Patrick Mahomes, but that timing of being out there on the field. What does Richie James do well? He said he's got a feel for the game, timing with the quarterback. He understands the pace, the speed up, slow down when reading the defense and some of those things, because he's been in the league a while. And then Justin Ross was asked about him, and he said excels at route running. There will be immense growth for him, like Sky, because Sky Moore last year was trying to digest the offense and everything, with Justin Ross having a redshirt year, and you would hope time to do a lot of mental reps and digesting the offense. Then now it's out there putting paper to real life in running those things.
One thing I saw, legit Justin Ross note here from a clip that KCSN tweeted out. He was lining up as a gunner on punt coverage. He actually fields the punt and brings it down right in front of the end zone. But that's a path for receivers to make it on this team.
I was going to say, yeah.
That's the Marcus Kemp path.
If Justin Ross is going to make the squad as one of the last guys on this team, he needs to show that he could play some special teams. That would certainly increase the likelihood of that. We talked about he was also taking punt returns, but that's just like every receiver's out there catching punts before practice and things like that. But maybe there is something more to that. If Justin Ross is a sure-handed guy, he could be put back there like they did with Justin Watson a couple of times. But if he's now a gunner and just simply playing special teams, and you increase the value of him, and more likely that he will be then out there on the field against the Lions as part of the 53-man roster, if he can do that.
This team's 5th and 6th receivers have to play special teams. Yes. And really, looking at this group in particular, MVS doesn't. Sky Moore won't. Rashee Rice may need to, because if not, really, it is a short list. There's no Tyreek Hill, MVS, or some of the older receivers that are just like, hey Anquan Bolton, you don't need to be out there running gunners. I don't know why I'm thinking about Anquan Bolton, but I'm always thinking about Anquan Bolton.
Why wouldn't you?
This, though, is a legit path for both Rosses, for Richie James, for all of these guys. Being a real Tobe favorite, that might matter more than being an Andy Reid favorite if you're the 6th receiver, honestly.
Richie James, Justin Watson are going to provide special teams.
Absolutely.
And then who after that? Who's the 6th guy that they take? Also, real quick with Rashee Rice, and then we'll take a break. It's really interesting him talking about the transition from college to the pros and not just learning the offense, but he said, they look for baby steps of growth in Rashee Rice. And it was a great point of being in a no-huddle offense where you would run your route and then you would just run back to the line of scrimmage of sort of where you were and looking over. He said now he's running to the huddle, breaking the huddle, knowing how fast he needs to be out there, going in motion, running his route, then sprinting back to the huddle. That's something I hadn't even thought about.
Nope.
And just getting used to the NFL in a playbook, but now you're not just running back to the line of scrimmage on the same side of the field you were on and just looking over to the quarterback to have him signal something and what you're going to run. You're running to the huddle. Seems pretty simple, but it's kind of like a quarterback going, this guy was in shotgun. Now he's got to take the ball under center. A little bit different, but it is a transition from something that was made to be a little bit easier for the receivers. Then now you don't get that luxury. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 W.
The McCarthy Auto Group is presenting the honorary ESPYs right here on Sports Radio 810, brought to you by All Weather Decks. And you can go to 810whb.com right now and check out the ESPYs tab, and you can vote for the nominees to win a local ESPY that ESPN has chosen Sports Radio 810 WHB yet again this year to honor Kansas City's outstanding players and coaches and individuals and those in the community. We give away the honorary ESPYs, and we've loved doing this over the years. And the finalists are there at 810whb.com that you can go through and look at some of the high school finalists, the college finalists, the teams, the coaches, the Perseverance Award. You can go and check out all of the different bios and things like that.
810whb.com/ESPYs if you want to go straight to the URL, straight there to go cast your ballots. 810whb.com/ESPYs.
Yep. You can go and do that. The can't stop watching moment. Daniel Heshaw Jr. 73-yard touchdown reception, helping beat Duke, a 35-27 win. Bobby Pettiford Jr.'s improbable buzzer beater in the battle for Atlantis against Wisconsin. Marquise Noel's no-look alley-oop to Keontae Johnson, while the confusion with Jerome Tang, that was pretty awesome.
That one's tough to beat, and then, but we got some real contenders here. It's a good category.
Casey Lightfoot sets the American pole vault record. Kadarius Toney with the punt return in the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes with the Tampa Bay touchdown to Edwards-Helaire, running right, spinning back, little toss floater in the lane to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So those are some pretty can't stop watching moments. So yeah, it's gonna be a difficult one. So you can go there right now, 810whb.com, and vote for what you feel like.
I might have to vote for the alley-oop, man. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that.
Man.
I've never seen anything like Patrick Mahomes, period. I mean, we got a record in here as well. There's a lot of things you've not seen very often, but that one really sticks out as a defining moment of that team.
Well, so you're gonna get you would get KU split between the Pettiford and the Hishaw. You would get the Chiefs split between Toney and Mahomes, and Emaw going right to Noel.
You can also end up casting a vote for FAU, who now gets the Chiefs vote also. I mean, that right there in terms of Athlete of the Year.
Yep.
We're going to see a lot of allegiances tested here. 810whb.com/ESPYs.
I think, can't stop watching moment. Like, I've watched that Mahomes touchdown pass a lot. It's in his highlight reel. But like the moment during the Chiefs season sort of Super Bowl, that Kadarius Toney punt return, certainly. But I think I'm with you. Like that no-look alley-oop to Keontae Johnson was a pretty badass moment in sports and the entire tournament.
Mercedes-Benz of Kansas City has your next vehicle, and it just might be electric. The original car manufacturer is now applying its technology
Start your success story with a degree from the University of St. Mary. Learn about USM's online and Overland Park concourses during an August 3rd info session. Register at stmary.edu/RSVP. The Chiefs will have their first day off of training camp tomorrow before the pads come on Friday. Today they wrapped up their first phase without Nick Bolton, who is out with an illness. Nothing new to report on Chris Jones, who also has nothing new to report. Kadarius Toney also wasn't seen at practice as expected, as Andy Reid confirmed yesterday that Toney had knee surgery. Reid said there's a chance Toney could be ready for Week 1. The news of the NFL world broke last night as the Los Angeles Chargers and quarterback Justin Herbert agreed on a 5-year, $262.5 million contract extension, making him the highest paid player in the NFL. Easy for me to say, easier for us to talk about. We'll talk some NFL, some more takeaways from Matt Nagy, and more next in The Zone.
You know, we were telling you about the honorary ESPYs at 810WHB.com. Presented by McCarthy Auto Group, 11 locations in Kansas and Missouri. McCarthy Auto Group, proud sponsor of high school athletics and the Simone Awards. McCarthyAutoGroup.com, and also All Weather Decks, Kansas City's most respected deck builder and the 24-time Angie's List Super Service Award winner. It's time to create your dream backyard. Get started at allweatherdecks.net. And we talked about the Can't Stop Watching moment, but also the Perseverance Award that is up for voting. The three nominees being Jackson McWilliams from Tonganoxie, Samaya Nichols from Shawnee Mission West, and Grace Slaughter from Grain Valley. Perseverance Award, Josh, this may be right up your alley there.
Okay.
Jackson McWilliams from Tonganoxie, easy for me to say. Retractable. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Let's go. I'm not applauding for diabetes.
You're very excited. You're rooting for diabetes.
Welcome to the club.
It's odd to be rooting for diabetes.
Yeah, no, that's a fair one.
Interesting. Lost 30 pounds in a few weeks.
Hey, me too.
Had fatigue and the illness. Rebounded to earn first-team All-State goalkeeper. Recorded 500th save this season.
Awesome. I didn't do anything that impressive after the first part, which I did also do.
Boy, 500 saves in a season seems like a record. Oh, Drake's telling me that's in his career. Sorry. Okay. Boy, it says 500th save this season. Plus, I mean, he missed time.
Yeah.
He returned, made All-State. No one. I mean, no bleep, you're All-State. Yet 500 saves in a season. Didn't even play the whole time.
That's adjusted for a lack of pancreas functionality.
That makes sense.
There's a special analytics just for us. It's why Noah Gray. I have a special diabetic fantasy league where Noah Gray, Mark Andrews, top of the class, obviously.
Jackson McWilliams.
And now he's my next entry.
Samaya Nichols from Shawnee Mission West returned from the torn ACL to help lead the Vikings to sub-state final. Committed to go to Kansas, number 21 overall in the 2023 recruiting class by ESPN. And then Grace Slaughter, Grain Valley, again tore ACL, returned from the ACL injury, averaging 28 points per game and eclipsed 2,500 points. In a game, in one game, also career, and the Missouri Gatorade Basketball Player of the Year, Grace Slaughter, heading to Mizzou. So there you go. So those are the Perseverance Award, overcoming some issues to be able to return and perform at a high level. As I mentioned, that sort of reminds me that I wanted to mention, at least at some point today, that there's some pretty good news in the NFL from that perspective. Damar Hamlin has been fully cleared to play.
Crazy.
And John Mechie has been fully cleared to play as well. John Mechie from Alabama, drafted by the Houston Texans, was diagnosed with leukemia last year, missed all of last season. He has now been fully cleared to play, to practice with the Houston Texans. Both of those today being announced they are fully cleared. So there's some perseverance by both of those individuals to return. So good news for both of them. And John Mechie was on the cusp of starting his NFL career, and then you don't know if you're going to play again. Damar Hamlin had been playing in the NFL, so a little bit different. But again, you didn't even know if he was going to be able to function again. So good news. Uplifting news from those particular players that are returning to the field and being able to play. And just sort of a crazy, whether it's coincidence or it is something that ESPN specifically wanted to have happen and planned in the schedule this upcoming season. We were talking to Joe Buck at the American Century Championship that the last Monday Night Football game was the Bengals-Bills game, in which didn't even end.
Yeah, barely started.
The first Monday Night Football game this year is Jets-Bills. So the last Monday Night Football game, Damar Hamlin left the field in an ambulance. The first Monday Night Football game, Damar Hamlin will be playing on the field.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if ESPN, was like, hey, Monday Night Football, we need that game. We need the Bills or the NFL, whatever it is. You got crazy storylines because the Bills, wanting to win a Super Bowl. The Jets have Aaron Rodgers and the roster that they have, and Damar Hamlin's returning to play. So that Monday Night Football game is going to be as highly anticipated as we've seen of Monday Night Football games.
Yeah, and I mean, it was hard to imagine what football would look like after everything with Damar Hamlin when football did eventually resume, and that was an emotional time. But, I mean, just even seeing a couple of the photos from Bill's camp, I guess, I don't know what the timeline on all of that would have been, but I saw one picture of Hamlin, taking the field, and to see what that's going to end up looking like in all of the sights and sounds of Monday Night Football with everyone. I mean, it's a wild thing to think about, but Damar Hamlin, at least in this moment and certainly late last year, was one of the most recognizable names in all of American sports because everyone was following what's going to happen with this guy that we all saw. We didn't even see him collapse. We just knew he was on the field. It was watching quarterback. It was that early Bills game. It's like, hey, that's number 3. That's Damar Hamlin. There's a feeling of eeriness when you're watching past games of him. Seeing him take the field for the first time is going to be hard to even predict what that's going to be like emotionally. It's going to be heavy, I think.
Intern Dylan texting me saying that Jackson McWilliams also one of the top place kickers.
I was just checking out his Twitter actually as well.
Dylan's or Jackson's?
Jackson's.
Okay. You think that's who the people at Tahoe following Mahomes and Kelsey around in their
what about Jackson?
around on Friday was it Jackson McWilliams they were talking about when
he was
they were
diagnosed
yelling,
with diabetes? He's a great kicker and a goalie.
They were yelling Jackson when Mahomes would be out there. You think
clearly didn't work because you should have been ready to lead that fight for Jackson McWilliams.
Probably should have done that.
I'm not saying the zone is specifically endorsing any of these candidates. I am saying, I've got a little vial of insulin in here just in case we do need to throw our support behind any one candidate. Maybe he'll get my vote.
Well, you also got Grace Slaughter that's a Mizzou commit in Grand Valley with, my friend Andrew Enlow that, works there. So, I mean, come on. It's going to be, we might even be split here as well. I mean,
we really might.
We had Beards working for a while. He was, a KU guy. So, Samaya Nichols heading to KU from Shawnee Mission West. I mean, it's a tough category here. There's no local player perseverance award heading to Drake. So,
that's tough. That's going to be
for
difficult.
Jason, no dog in the fight there. Or Nebraska. So, Reed, the intern, who will be participating in the intern Jeopardy final today. The final.
Maybe Jackson will eventually kick for the Jets, and then Reed will have a very long of winding road.
Goes to Nebraska first, and then kicks for the Jets.
Maybe even just goes to the Packers for 15 years, and then kicks for the Jets just because this guy,
that would be great.
The only two Jets players I've ever heard Reed talk about are Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall. I don't know why.
Well, he's wearing a Vinny Pasquantino Jets jersey today.
Yeah, which I haven't had the heart to tell him that he doesn't actually play football.
He's a Royal.
I think Reed's under the impression that Pasquantino bowed out of the season early to get ready for Jets camp, and I don't know how to break the news.
Yeah, that's weird. I was speaking of whatever we were just speaking of there. I was at a wedding over the weekend, and the groom is a Buffalo Bills fan.
And you still went?
Didn't know it until we got there.
All right.
So I was unaware. I was unaware of the details. I did not have context to this wedding, just that my wife's friend was getting married. I've never met the man. He apparently from Rochester. Moved. Met this lovely lady. Kaylin's friend. We both met him for the first time at the wedding. So we were there supporting her. All good. She's a huge Packers fan. And so their marriage is sort of Packers and Bills, and so that's kind of interesting. They both had their vows that they wrote had to do with football.
Wow.
There was that tie-in, which was interesting, and he had mentioned that, through good times and bad, including you planning and hosting a Taylor Swift sing-along during a Bills playoff game. And then talked about all the things that they had been through together. He's like, we've been through the COVID. We've been through this, job changes, Aaron Rodgers' darkness retreat. It was very good. There's a lot of fun tie-ins with sports. So wedding's over. We're at the reception and everything.
Tables are just broken in half all over the place.
It was weird. Everybody
Carnage.
was just there was an entire mafia there.
Actually, it was weird. The groom's side was wrecked. The bride's side was fine.
That's right. They were all very quiet.
They were maybe their mouths were full of cheese.
Yes,
that's the only thing I can think of for Packers.
Very quiet. Very. It was a lot of meditation going on.
It was dark, quiet, and there were cheese curds everywhere.
So, reception's going on, and talking to the bride and groom, and they were talking about that, they're not going on a honeymoon right now, like immediately. We're like, oh, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm like, if you need a honeymoon, Bills are playing at Arrowhead. If you wanted to, you got a place to stay.
Say St. Joe.
St. Joe, right? No, I'm like, Bills are playing at Arrowhead. He's like, yeah, I don't know. So we ended up talking about like the Bills, and he was like, I'll never forgive the coaching staff for that 13 seconds. He's like, that was our Super Bowl. I said, look, I'll tell you this much. I think you guys beat the Bengals by 20 points in Buffalo if you win that game. I think you win the Super Bowl that year if you win that game. I'm not trying to rub salt in or anything like that. He's like, no, I agree. I was like, and I don't have a dog in the fight there, just that I think that was, if you guys won that game, you were a freight train to go and win the Super Bowl. And he's like, I just never forget all that stuff. And so then he had said that, he was in Cincinnati for that Monday Night Football game and everything. And so we were talking, and I was like, well, if you want to head down to Kansas City, you ever see a game at Arrowhead, bucket list thing, you got a place to stay. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know that I'd want to see a game at Arrowhead. I'm like, why not? He's like, I just, being an opposing fan, like there's some stadiums I want to go to, but then stadiums that I've heard about that being an opposing fan at may not be great for you. And he's like, Arrowhead's one of them. I'm like, really? I was like, I don't know that I've heard that. I'm like, I was like, well, if there's different stadiums too, like I would love to go to Buffalo, but I don't know about being around Bills Mafia. And he goes, yeah, but we're good people. I was like, hold on.
Is he worried about getting mugged
I was like,
by a man in a wolf costume?
And he goes, well, I'm not saying you guys aren't. I'm like, I kind of feel like that's
what it sounds like.
Kind of felt like that's what you were saying. And he was like, yeah, but I went to Cincinnati and it was fine. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, because Bills and Bengals fans were chanting, bleep the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
You guys were together in your hatred of Kansas City. You and the Bengals now, after the divisional round, don't really seem to be singing Kumbaya because all of the trash talking by the Bengals. There were a lot of Bills fans that said, you know what? Never thought I'd say this. Chiefs beat their ass.
Yeah.
So that Kumbaya thing isn't there. And so I'm like, we had just had Mike Ryan on at Tahoe, and he said one of the best experiences he had as a Packer fan was going to Arrowhead. Browns fan. Yeah, duh. Yeah, Browns fan was sorry, Packers on my mind, Freudian slip. Was going to Arrowhead and watching that Week 1 game where Baker Mayfield ended up throwing the interception to.
Was that a Bashad Breeland?
Bashad Breeland.
Wow,
that's right.
Look at that.
To Bashad Breeland, and he was like, it was great, and everybody was welcoming and everything. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that a lot. I think every single fan base depends on where you're around. You can be around a bunch of AHs at a different stadium, and you're going to go, that experience was awful. You can be around a bunch of people that are just awesome and nice and welcoming. You go, you know what, that was great. Every single fan base is going to I that. But I'm like, he said, well, I'm not saying you guys aren't, good people. He was like, but just, Chiefsaholic. I said, well, I don't, he's not robbing people. So
there aren't 70,000 of him.
I was like, the Chiefsaholic is a guy. I'm like, I'm not really sure what that has to do with it. I'm like, isn't the that whatever beach a serial killer there, isn't he a Bills fan? Like, I'd be more worried about that guy. There's any young females in their 20s going to Bills game if that guy's a serial killer and looks for a specific type. Chiefsaholic. In fact, the safest place to be from Chiefsaholic is in Kansas City.
Great point.
He's robbing banks everywhere else.
Point.
You know what? Go to a casino with him. That guy's got, allegedly, that guy's got millions of dollars to burn there at casinos, man. Go there with him. In fact, that's probably encouraging. That it was just odd that it was like, yeah, I don't think I could do that. But what about going to Buffalo? We're good people.
Wow. I mean, yeah,
The Midwest typically has a reputation of being very welcoming.
Well, I mean, the conventional wisdom is Midwest bank robbers. That's sort of the Midwest nice, not so much. Midwest will take your money from allegedly from just fueling your Chiefs. Alcoholism, I guess. I don't know. Addiction.
It was interesting. I do wonder, like, if there are Bengals fans that would head to Kansas City and watch a game at Arrowhead as a Bengals fan there.
I think that would be more hostile, right? That's what
That
we're
would be more
getting
hostile.
at.
Yeah, because there's that vitriol there.
I think the word Burrowhead would be said a lot in their general direction.
That's right.
That might not be fun.
Yeah, it might not be the best. It would be fun if you won that game. Like Bengals fans at Arrowhead this last year, probably not as fun as Bengals fans at Arrowhead a couple of years ago that did the whole Lawrence, Kansas, Arrowhead Stadium double weekend thing when Kentucky played KU in Allen Fieldhouse, and then the Bengals played the Chiefs the next day, and Kentucky and the Bengals both won. That was a fun weekend for them.
That's
Whatever.
True.
Whatever. They ended up losing the Super Bowl and losing in the first round to Saint whatever. So those things didn't really work out in the end overall. But it may be more hostile for them. I don't know. Maybe not. But again, I think it wherever you're at in a stadium, you might be around the nicest people ever, and your experience is just great. Like, you know what? I would go back there again. That was awesome. Everybody was welcoming, and you might also sit by some people that are drunk and cursing and willing to project their frustrations or hate or built up anxiety and rage at you because you're right there. In words, certainly.
And I wonder if there are stories that he had heard from people who went, or is it that I saw Chiefsaholic online? Because, I mean, look,
are Bills fans? Was there a hostility to them in the regular season games when they were there?
It felt like Chiefs Bills was the nicest rivalry in the NFL. Like where there were a lot of stakes attached, but two great quarterbacks and two, for a while, long-suffering fan bases.
Yep.
Felt like there was a little bit of camaraderie
and
there.
it felt like mutual respect as well as
absolutely.
The Bills, man.
I think I feel pretty good about this. By far, got to be the two most iconic tailgating fan bases in the sport, right? I'm not leaving anyone out on purpose, but like the Chiefs tailgating is at Arrowhead is part of the lore, and the Bills shattering tables like nobody's business is part of the lore. Like those, these are good game day experiences at their core for these two places. Also, I regret to make a correction on something earlier for a name that I bet has not been said on these airwaves in a bit. Baker Mayfield was intercepted not by Bashaud Breeland.
Oh, wow. Hold
by
on.
another, I can give you, I think they might be an immaculate grid answer for that would share with Bashaud Breeland.
Wow, hold on.
I'll hold on. I'll stay right here.
Oh, it was Mike Edwards. Not Mike Edwards, but Mike whatever his name is.
You're almost there.
The Minnesota Vikings guy.
The Minnesota Vikings guy.
Man, how do I not remember this guy's name?
Mike Hughes.
Mike Hughes.
You're forgiven, Jason.
Thank you. Mike Hughes.
He was a useful player, but I don't think...
because Bashaud Breeland was 2020 in the run it back, and then 2021 they went and got Mike Hughes. I just remember Mike Hughes saying, well, I made a great play. After the game, was like, well, we had the coverage on, and then obviously I made a great play.
Obviously.
I made a great play. That was great. Yeah, I mean, you did. You caught the ball into the game. That was awesome. I think Chris Jones, Dan Sorensen, wrapping up Baker Mayfield as Baker Mayfield was falling to the ground because of that the throw was short, but Baker turned into Baker, so which is fine, whatever. Tex says, I'll always remember X Factor getting knocked out cold during a Bills-Chiefs game.
Oh, I didn't think about that being during a Bills game. That's interesting.
Yeah,
but that was Chief on Chief crime
that's
there, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was Chief Superfan on Chief Superfan crime. It's
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
Chiefsaholic is only robbing banks where Chief Superfans work.
Which, hold on now.
Well,
let's look into this, everybody. Hey, FBI.
Interesting.
Got a couple ideas for you.
That was a rough night, too, for a lot of Chiefs fans because that game kind of sucked. And that loss, and that was the beginning of the Chiefs really going through a struggle and a lull before heading the and then lost to the Bengals. Whatever.
Still a rough
Whatever.
stretch. I wonder if there are more stories of Arrowhead getting. I haven't been in Arrowhead proper.
There's a story for every stadium. For sure. For every stadium about how awesome it was or how terrible it was.
Yeah, and it's going to be influenced, like you said, by the three. And this isn't even a dishonest way for it to happen. It's just how it happens. The three people in front of you, behind you, and to your left and right are probably going to determine how you feel about everyone in that stadium.
Yep.
And that's just sort of a unfortunate way of how that goes.
Yeah, I've watched one game for the Chiefs in an opposing stadium, and that was in Cincinnati in 2015.
So not quite the same energy.
Yeah, Chiefs went up there and lost. That was the Cincinnati going to the playoffs every year but losing in the first round.
So that's Andy Dalton era, right?
Yeah, that was Andy Dalton.
Okay.
It was Andy Dalton. It was in Cincinnati. That was the 2015 season. It was 2015 because Kaylin was about to give birth. So she was walking around and we're like, she's walking so much today, she might go into labor tomorrow.
Honey, listen, I know you're about to pop, but if I don't get up there to see Andy Dalton versus Alex Smith, I mean, what's the point?
I always tell Everett, like, that was kind of your first football game you ever went to.
Honey, this is the best day of our life right now. Dalton Smith.
I don't even know what the date of that game was.
It was early October, October 4th.
Okay, so that was still a month and a couple days.
You still had some time. It wasn't that bad.
Come on, what are you complaining about?
Oh, dude. I mean, do you know who you saw?
You talk about being a trooper. She was a trooper.
Yeah, but whenever she knows that you have a chance to see an 11 reception, 148 receiving yard performance from
Chief or Bengal?
Chief.
Travis Kelce.
Jeremy Maclin.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
See? Yeah.
You were going to not go see Jeremy Maclin?
But the Chiefs lost that game, though.
Yeah, bad. 15 points.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't a great game, and it was so hot.
36-21.
Oh, so hot.
And I mean, I think about it. I mean, you were basically sweating for two. You and the 8-month baby just sitting right there in your. Oh no, that was your. Okay, it wasn't you. So you were uncomfortable though, man. I mean, it was tough out there. I bet. Those uncomfortable stadium seats.
Yeah,
you must have been in such pain.
I was not comfortable watching the Chiefs. You know, we both sort of had the same experience.
You were both carrying a real burden.
Wow, you call my son a burden.
At that phase, at least, I think that's fair. I bet your wife would agree.
You know what? We talked to him every night. He was not a burden. We saw him kicking and punching and hiccuping a lot.
Your son or X Factor?
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810
We continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Drake, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 1 o'clock. A text came in earlier that I wanted to read. I forgot to read it in the previous segment, but it goes back to the press conferences. We heard Creed Humphrey use tomfoolery, and we heard George Karlaftis say "Mamma Mia," and the text says, "I feel like that's a game where they somehow had to get Mamma Mia in there. Creed Humphrey had to say tomfoolery, and George Karlaftis had to say Mamma Mia."
I think Matt Nagy had one also that sent up my antenna, but I did not write it down.
Okay.
I did not write down one specific phrase, but I do think that if this ends up coming out at some point, they got a little presser game going on. We are calibrated to it.
That's right, with the "Take it easy, roller coaster tycoon."
Yep. Got to be on your toes.
But Karlaftis also used Eureka. He used Eureka and Mamma Mia.
Was that all in the Tomba question and answer? When was the Eureka?
Eureka was the second half of the season, what happened, why you became one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. And he said, after the bye week, you sort of take a step back, you look at yourself in the mirror, you see where your issues are, where you can get better. You sort of have these epiphanies, a Eureka.
I had a friend who couldn't say epiphany. She would always just say epiphany, and it just has come back and feels like a retractable sort of issue.
He had like an epiphany. He had a Eureka moment, remembering that.
Related.
Did Richie James say anything? I didn't hear anything from Richie James that would have been like, oh, he had to sneak in a word. But Creed and Karlaftis, they've been here. This is third year for Creed, second year for Karlaftis. Maybe like the rookies or the first-year guys aren't given a word to say.
You got enough on your plate right now.
Yeah,
Don't worry about the press conference game.
Yes.
We'll let you in year two.
That's
God,
right.
I'm going to have to find what the Nagy one was now, so we'll keep an ear on this again. So they're off tomorrow.
Oh, Matt Nagy, the sky is the roof.
The sky's the roof. That's what it was. Yes,
the roof.
That's what it was. Because he said that, we both looked up and was like, hold on a second. So yes, so Matt Nagy is on the sky is the roof watch. Yeah. Then we have Mamma Mia, Epiphany.
So sky's the roof. Tomfoolery. Mamma Mia or Eureka. Because I think it's Eureka over Epiphany.
I agree.
Eureka is one that's like, hey, how do you sneak in Eureka? How do you sneak in Mamma Mia? So we'll see. We'll follow it. I hadn't been following or thinking about those until today.
The sky is the roof sent up one antenna for us.
The ceiling is the roof.
And so, but Nagy's was the sky, right? He said the sky?
He said the sky is the roof.
And he wasn't talking about Sky Moore, right? That wasn't a pun?
No.
I can't remember the context of that question now.
Man, he was talking about...
I think it was a receiver, but I don't think it was
either
Sky.
Ross or Rashee Rice.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those two. That
yeah, so not a pun, not a play on words.
Sky's the roof.
Just I think weaving in. You had to assume that if this game is actually happening, Matt Nagy was like, all right, the sky is the roof. Someone's going to ask me about Sky Moore. This is going to line up.
Somebody's going to ask me about a receiver.
And he zagged.
They're going to ask me about Justin Ross. They're going to ask me about Rashee Rice. Sky is the roof for this guy.
It may have been very literary because there's a Willa Cather quote, elsewhere the sky is the roof of the world, but here the earth was the floor of the sky. So that's you get like super deep English lit type stuff going on here.
You said it might have been very literary, and I thought Drake wouldn't get the because like
Drake doesn't know anything.
It sounds like you would say it might have been very literally, but I believed in real time. I was like, no. Drake said literary.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get like a poem here? And then we did.
Well, Willa Cather, sure, why not?
Beautiful.
He's Drake's smart.
Drake's a smart fella.
He's self-smart.
I had to Google it though.
Okay, well, it happens.
Keandre Coburn's using a Quizlet to learn the play. I mean, it's fine. I think we got to use the tools at our disposal. Nothing wrong with Will at Google. I didn't actually remember that it was Mike Hughes who picked off Baker Mayfield. I had to Google it. I'm going to admit that now.
Oh, okay.
I want it to be Bashad Breeland.
So let's hear.
Oh, and just we should say, Kadarius Toney has posted on Instagram.
Yes.
Said surgery went well. I'll be back like I never left. So Kadarius Toney, a picture making a face from his hospital bed, but sounds like all is well on the surgery front for him.
Cool. Let's hear from Louis Riddick on running backs because Matt Nagy or Creed Humphrey was asked about Deneric Prince. I think Matt Nagy was also asked about that. Pads are coming on Friday. Louis Riddick is talking about running back contracts. Now, think of the context this quote is. He's on ESPN talking about Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs is not reporting. Josh Jacobs is a different situation than Saquon Barkley. That thing may last a while until he gets money. He's not going to settle for the Saquon Barkley contract, so that's going to be interesting to watch with the Raiders. But Louis Riddick talking about running backs can sort of be found in a lot of different places, and this is where Louis Riddick decides to go to make an example of that.
Then they have this new guy, Deneric Prince. Now, they haven't even put on the pads down in Kansas City, but they're gushing over this guy already. An undrafted free agent, big, strong, low 4.4, 4.3, catching the ball, get out of the backfield, retaining all the information really well. They can't wait to see him in pads. They can't wait. This is the kind of story that happens every year, and it doesn't bode well for the Josh Jacobs and the Tony Pollards and the Saquon Barkleys of the world. It just doesn't, because teams are going, why should we invest that when we can find this guy who somehow, some way, slipped through the cracks, and it happens every year, and we sign him as an undrafted free agent.
You can get running backs anywhere. Let me tell you about Deneric Prince in Kansas City. They are gushing about this guy. They haven't put pads on yet. Gushing! And Louis Riddick is using Deneric Prince as an example of, you can find running backs a lot of different places, not in the first round, or paying them, $15 million per year. Not Pacheco.
No, who has done it already.
Who actually did it.
A called shot.
But Deneric Prince.
I don't want to just turn this into a running back value conversation entirely, because I actually think we're in a more interesting place with it now with all of these contract negotiations than we were in, let's say, early 2020. But it is so bizarre to me. It's so difficult to understand how the Chiefs went from a case study as a team who fundamentally did not understand running back value, really actually did understand running back value, had a huge blunder, and then went back to continuing to be the literal best example of utilizing your running backs in the best way against their value anywhere in football. Because they did it with Pacheco, and now Deneric Prince seems like he's there to be next. They did it with both Williamses, and then sandwiched in the middle. They draft a running back at the end of the first round. It's just it is a wild, what I think now is clearly the outlier, a wild blip on that radar for a front office that's been so good at finding great running back value elsewhere and putting them in positions to succeed, which is part of it. Isaiah Pacheco is probably not a 1,000-yard rusher, nearly a 1,000-yard rusher last year. If he's maybe a giant even, I don't know if there's a running back ahead of him that they prefer.
The issue that running backs have, and this is true of a lot of different positions, right? But if we talk about like the impact a running back has, if a running back says, no, this is the value we have in helping a team win a Super Bowl. In that we've talked about, look at the running backs that have won a Super Bowl. Look at the quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl. One of the best running backs in the league, dynamic running backs in the league, is Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. And he's paid like that. Yep. And I'm okay with the Christian McCaffrey contract because he signed that contract coming off a year where he had 100 receptions in the NFL. He's not a running back, he's a weapon. I think there's a difference. You know what kills the running backs when they talk about how important they are to a team? Is that in the championship game in the NFC, the 49ers literally did not have a quarterback, but they had one of the most dynamic running backs in the league, and they gained a total of 47 yards in the second half. Without somebody able to pass the ball, they picked up 47 yards and no points with the dynamic McCaffrey, dynamic Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, all of those guys. McCaffrey's the highest paid running back, right? Mm-hmm. They couldn't do anything with that guy in the backfield. If McCaffrey was missing and Brock Purdy was healthy, what would they have done in the second half? They'd pick up more than 47 yards, I promise you that.
Absolutely. They were good before they traded for Christian McCaffrey. Right. That example's out there. We saw the Niners be excellent without Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's that kills the running backs in talking about how valuable they are to an offense and what they mean out there on the field, he didn't make a difference because they didn't have a quarterback. And that, that can go for every single position. You go, well, wide receivers don't deserve $30 million because without a quarterback, then the wide receiver becomes obsolete. Very true. Understandable. But it's part of the overall passing game where the running back doesn't need the quarterback to get the ball. They need the offensive line to block. They need to have a running play called. Then they can control those things in terms of, yards they gain. A lot of it is dependent on the offensive line, which is a lot of the value we're seeing in decreasing in running backs is offensive line dependent, but also overall offense. And you're talking about an offense that is one of the most dynamic running offenses with Kyle Shanahan in the NFL. And they picked up 47 yards.
I'm trying to figure out a way to make this math work for the hypothetical because I want to say, would you rather have the best offensive line in football and undrafted free agent running back or a below average? Let's make it a below average, not even 1 to 32.
Okay.
But you can have the worst offensive or a below average offensive line and Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey or whoever, but a 25th offensive line in football and that guy, or a top 5 offensive line and literally someone who gets cut this month. Yeah. Someone who gets cut in August.
I'll take the latter.
Of course, the Chiefs did that with Damian Williams. I mean, he and they've done it with Jerick McKinnon. He's that guy. Deneric Prince, they clearly prioritized him as an undrafted free agent. They passed on Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round.
That's right.
And he's going to be, he had 1,000 yards all-purpose last year, 1,000 of rushing when you include the playoffs. He's on that bubble of being a 1,000-yard guy. And there are so many examples of that. That's another thing that I think really hurts the running back conversation for them, who I do have some sympathy for, because it's one of the most fun parts of football. You cannot in any way, shape, or form tell the story of the NFL without running backs. Yeah. It's impossible. And it also would be less fun. But the value of those guys individually is so impacted by their surroundings, and there are so precious few examples of there being running backs who transcend their surroundings. And then of those guys, Jamal Charles was able to transcend some surroundings for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wear and tear eventually gets you, more so and more aggressively than at other positions. And it's just what we have seen in perfect clarity. It's the market catching up to the smart thing. There just is a human cost to it, as there is in every one of these conversations. I actually appreciate that people are acknowledging the human cost of running backs don't matter, of all of those things, because I hope we're more in tune with that going forward. But it's really clear at this point. It's pretty simple.
And it's just an value assessment. I mean, running backs do matter. Like, we can't say that any running back and no matter what, put anybody back there, it's fine, and then discuss the difference in the Chiefs' offense with Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire. Those are different running backs, same offense, same plays, but there's a different feel to the offense. Yeah, running backs matter to a degree, but at what degree do they matter differentiating from replacement player to the value then? Because replacement player Edge and Nick Bosa,
yes, right,
it's a massive difference. Replacement player running back and Saquon, there's a difference, but if you surround with a really good offensive line and a good play caller and scheme, you could have that running back look pretty good. Alfred Morris was like a 1,200-yard rusher in Washington because of the scheme, Shanahan's offense, RG3 offering a threat to run himself.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Morris comes out of nowhere and does that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Reed, stop talking to Drake. We're taking a break right now.
This was Reed's fault.
More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to the...
810 WHB. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 1 o'clock. Let's hear from Daniel Popper. He is the Chargers reporter for The Athletic. And Daniel Popper was being interviewed last night after the Herbert contract and talking about now that this is done. I mean, we knew it was going to get done at some point, but now that it's done and the organization has shown their belief in Justin Herbert as the franchise guy, the pressure now turns to old Brandon Staley and that team and even the front office, because you've already said this guy's a franchise quarterback worth all this money. He can win a Super Bowl. He hasn't won a playoff game yet.
Yeah, the stakes couldn't be higher. They have to win. They have to win a playoff game. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. I think you've seen improvement year over year since Brandon Staley took over. 9-8 in year 1, 10-7 in year 2, made it to the playoffs in year 2. Obviously, it ended in disastrous fashion last year, but this year they have to take that next step. They have to win a playoff game and be a real contender for the Super Bowl, and even before that, a real contender for the division, because they have been dominated by this Chiefs team since I was basically in middle school. So, you know, that's really where it starts. You got to contend for the division, and you got to win a playoff game, and you got to make a potential run deep into the postseason.
I mean, he's on the hot seat, Brandon Staley is.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. With the 27-point blown lead against the Jags, if they made it into the divisional round last year, you'd have a different feel to this Chargers upcoming season. But losing that game and the first playoff appearance that you've had with Justin Herbert, and then now going into this year with Herbert making all the money, you drafted Quentin Johnston. There's a lot of pressure on the Chargers to not only get there, but to win at least a playoff game. If they don't make the playoffs, there's going to be, the turnover. Brandon Staley's out of a job at that point, and then we'll see where they go, probably an offensive mind. And I would say somebody from Sean McVay's tree, but technically Brandon Staley is a guy from McVay, Shanahan, but really he's a Vic Fangio disciple, so he's kind of like both. It's like
they all tie together. If you haven't listened, I can't remember if I talked about it on the show or not. I finished the 5-part Play Callers series on the Athletic Football podcast feed. Jordan Rodrigue, I do occasionally. Cool. Jordan Rodrigue did a series. We talked with Shanahan and McDaniel and a whole bunch of those guys from that tree. You would love it. It's fascinating.
I'm going to listen to it.
Can't remember if I talked about it on air or not.
You did, but it is a good reminder that I need to listen to it. But yeah, there's obviously the pressure is going to be on Brandon Staley on that coaching staff now with the Chargers is what they do this year, and they're in a division with the Chiefs. Like the pressure is there with the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. So wild card is sort of like you want to win the division, but realistically, wild card is what you're trying to get. And a wild card game, you're not playing at home. It's not a home game. You're going to have to win a playoff game on the road if you say playoff win or bust this year for the Chargers. Either you're going to win the division that has the betting favorite Super Bowl champs Chiefs, or you're winning a road game in the playoffs against the division winner.
I'm actually surprised he's not higher on what I'm finding now. That, you know what, always comes out, always makes some news. Odds for first head coach to be fired. And I thought Brandon Staley would be higher on this list than he actually is. There's some, unofficial lines of looking at Mike McCarthy, Jared Jones. That makes sense. Todd Bowles. As the head coaching carousel has went on over the offseason, I have now caught myself with there being two teams where, as the year has approached, I've had the thought of like, okay, so we're talking about coaching changes and defense coordinator, offensive coordinator, and all that. The two places where I have hesitated was Chargers didn't fire Brandon Staley. No. He's still there. And did the Bucs fire Todd? I don't think they did fire Todd Bowles. I'm like 30 for 32 with utter confidence until we get to those two guys, and I really do think the pressure's on Staley. It was on him a lot last year. It is on fire right now.
The all eyes moved to the Bengals. Joe Burrow was asked about his contract, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you anything there with where it's at." But Mike Brown, the Bengals owner, was asked about contract extensions for Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. And then Jamar Chase. And, oh, by the way, you got guys on defense and Awuzie and different players that are going to want new contracts and Reader and things like that. Here is Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, weighing in on all the players on the Bengals, the new contracts, and how they're going to have to approach it.
We have a list of people who are at the trough or hope to be soon, and they want to be fed fully. that's a challenge. You get a bag of corn and you have 10 hogs. How are you going to put that out to them? The bag's going to be gone, empty, and some of them aren't going to get it. That's pretty much how this system works. You prioritize the ones that matter most.
10 hogs and 1 bag of corn. How are you going to feed everybody? You can't. That is common knowledge.
Yep.
That you're not feeding 10 hogs with 1 bag of corn.
I don't know what the ratio is exactly, but I know it's not 10 to 1.
Absolutely. And depending on the bag of the corn, depending on how many hogs you can feed, but it's not 10.
Especially if that hog burrows his face in there.
You've got to prioritize which hog gets the corn.
Got to. Can't have hogs chasing that money all over the place.
But there also might be players that want to hog it. Or,
That's
excuse me, hogs that want to eat all the corn. Are there hogs that deserve more corn that are willing to give up some on their plate so that other hogs can be a part of the eating at the trough with everybody?
Mike Florio is going to be standing at the door of the slaughterhouse if you leave any corn on the table.
You don't do that!
Eat that corn!
No way!
I thought that was fascinating.
I just wanted to play that just because it's Mike Brown talking about the way the system works, which we're all aware of, but making the comparison to hogs at the trough eating corn.
What if it's hungry pig right?
Ooh.
Be great, yeah. It could be corn dog.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm. But I also thought it was interesting when he said, you prioritize the ones that you want.
So that I think that clip to me, and if you did you see the video of him?
I haven't
also?
seen the video. No,
I'm not trying to tell people they need to get their look. He's an old man, but it feels even older watching him talk through all of that, just because he's an old man. But it sounded to me like he was saying, "Yep." And if anyone wants to call us about T. Higgins, this is the time.
You got to prioritize, and not everybody is going to get paid. Eat
fed.
Not everybody is going to get fed. Not everybody is going to eat. And that's one that obviously they're going to have to deal with. Do we have time to play the Ryan Clark one or not? It's a 57-second clip.
If you get right to it.
Let's hear Ryan Clark, where the Bengals may suffer as they sign these new contracts.
Well, yeah, look at the defensive side of the ball. When you look at the last 2 years, especially in the playoffs with opportunities to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and Lou Anarumo has done an excellent job as a defensive coordinator. But you think of a guy like Logan Wilson that was drafted in the 3rd round in 2020. He'll be coming up with an opportunity to get a deal. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy who also makes plays on the football. Trey Hendrickson, DJ Reader up front are also guys who down the line will be looking to get new contracts because they are earning them. You go get DJ Turner, who's a burner out of Michigan, in the 2nd round, maybe to replace Chidobe Iwuzie, who is a little banged up on the back end, starting off on the PUP list. This is the defense that has excelled, especially late in the season, putting Joe Burrow, giving him those opportunities to win. It starts on the offensive side of the ball, but some of these defensive guys need to be shored up as well.
That's going to be interesting because we know Lou Anarumo and that Bengals defense has been a big part of their postseason runs the last 2 years. Whether, we talk about Joe Burrow and what he's done, but when those teams are giving up, 19, 16, 20, 10, 20, 17, those are the points they're giving up in the playoffs. Take some of those players away.
Men, summer is here. It's a time to vacation, get outside, and enjoy life with the one you love. But if you have erectile dysfunction, you know how it makes you feel. Embarrassed, frustrated, even angry. And that can make summertime a lot less fun. This is Jeff for Heartland Men's Health. And if you have ED, I want to encourage you today to get treated. Stop dealing with the lack of...
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. One more hour to go. We heard in the 11 o'clock hour from Matt Nagy. We heard from Richie James, Creed Humphrey, George Karlaftis there in St. Joe. Now hearing from Adam Teicher from ESPN, also there in St. Joe. Adam, what's up? How are you, sir?
Good. Jason, how you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Do you think the Chiefs are starting to play some games at the podium in the press conference with some words when we heard Creed Humphrey say tomfoolery and George Karlaftis drop a Mamma Mia?
Yeah, there you go. It's that point in camp where we need a little bit of that kind of spice here. So
the pads aren't even on yet.
Definitely appreciate that.
That's right. We got tomfoolery, we got Mamma Mia, and Eureka. And we also got the roof is the ceiling from Matt Nagy.
There you go.
So,
well, the roof
sky is the ceiling. Sorry, the sky is the ceiling. Sorry, the sky is the ceiling from Matt Nagy. So
there you go. Well, it's that time of camp where we need a little bit of little spice in that interview tent for sure.
It is much better to be talking about those things and fun in camp rather than the discussion that took place Monday and then yesterday with Kadarius Toney and the injury and Travis Kelce, a little bit of an inside baseball when he said, well, you know, we'll hopefully get him back in the season. And like, well, hold on, Travis, what are you talking about? And then Andy Reid gives the details. What's the impact, Adam, with no Kadarius Toney out there the rest of training camp and maybe the start of the season?
Yeah, that's not ideal. That's not the way the Chiefs want to be starting the regular season. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, I think they do have some depth. And, you know, I think surviving him for the loss of Toney for a short term will be doable for this team. You know, if this thing stretches on or it doesn't respond or he gets hurt again or whatever, that might be a problem. But there's some pretty good depth. I mean, you know, Sky Moore looks like he's a better player than he was last year, and I think Rashee Rice looks like he's going to be able to help. I kind of like what I've seen with him from him the last 3 or 4 days. You know, Richie James has got a little something to him too that maybe I didn't appreciate from OTAs. They're doing a little more now, obviously, camp, and I think Richie James has some things to his game as well that can help the Chiefs. So I think there's some depth there. So I do feel like the Chiefs could survive not having Toney for a shorter period, but for big games and the longer run, you'd feel better if you're the Chiefs if he was in the lineup.
There's a skill set the Chiefs covet, and, you know, part of that, you know, Tyreek Hill, whether that be McCole Hardman or Kadarius Toney, and without Toney out there, who picks up the load? Is it just the Chiefs don't have that guy, and they've got to do things different? And they didn't have McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney in different games last year, so they had to figure it out. Sky Moore was the motion man a lot in some of those games, but who then picks up the load for what they are hoping Kadarius Toney can bring to the table if healthy this year?
Well, they can spread the ball around. I don't think that's the problem. You know, to me, the bigger issue is who can do for them what Kadarius Toney could do for them. Where do you replicate that? And you know, I've seen a little bit from that from Richie James in this camp. You know, he's got a little bit of that change of direction that makes Tyreek Hill so dangerous in the open field and makes Toney the same way. You know, I see a little bit of that in Richie James. So, you know, I think that's a guy that the Chiefs might want to lean on when Kadarius Toney is out because, you know, if you're talking about doing the same things and helping in the same ways that Kadarius Toney can, I think Richie James is probably the best guy on the roster to do that. But you know, they'll have to spread the ball around. I think Sky Moore's slice of the pie gets bigger. I think Rashee Rice's slice of the pie gets bigger. So, you know, I think those guys are going to have to step up. I think it's going to, but they're going to, I don't think it's going to come from one guy. I think they're going to have to mix and match and get something from everybody.
Visiting with Adam Teicher, what can the Chiefs maybe expect moving forward from Kadarius Toney? I mean, is this, you know, we heard the Chiefs are hoping and view him as a guy that could be a number one receiver, but I said it yesterday, Adam, when we found out Kadarius Toney may miss Week 1, that he's been on the Chiefs for 10 total games, including the playoffs. He's missed 3 and he's left 3 early. So he has started and finished 40% of the games he's been on the Chiefs roster that they've played. Is that reality that you just go in thinking this is a cheaper version of Sammy Watkins, and if he's there, you take advantage? If not, but not somebody for 16, 17 games you're going to play in your wide receiver room around?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to consider a guy a number one receiver if he plays in, let's say 9 or 10 games in a season. That's not really, part of being a number one receiver in my book is being available just about every week. And, Tyreek Hill was available just about every week. He missed, a few games early in that 2019 season. Remember, he had that sternum clavicle injury that he had. But other than that, he was pretty durable. And, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, missed, 1 game last year because of the concussion, but he was available. So to me, that's part of the deal. And it's hard for me to consider him or plan on him being Toney, a number one guy, when he's just got the injury history that he's got. And that was what we were all sort of wondering about him coming into the season. And here we are. The first practice doesn't even start, and he's getting himself hurt. So I think from now on, for the future, I feel like the Chiefs have to plan for this. They can't put all of their eggs in Kadarius Toney's basket because he's not going to be around to use them for half the time.
Well, the worry would be if there's too many eggs in the basket and he was carrying it, he would get injured. So you want it to be a lighter basket as much as possible. You mentioned Sky Moore and Rashee Rice. There's the hope that Sky Moore takes the sophomore year wide receiver jump that can be expected, especially for an Andy Reid offense and getting used to things and how difficult some of the parts of the offense are. When you think of Sky Moore and you watching him so far in camp with no pads on, some shells and things like that, but also what you would hope he would be doing in year number 2, how much of a step up is realistic to expect from Sky Moore, from the guy they drafted, who they talked about, who gained separation at the line of scrimmage as well as anybody, but the little small intricacies of running a route and adjusting to the defense in real time were not there last year for him, and he couldn't play and be out there very often if they had other guys. How much of an expected sort of realistic jump can he make with some of those things, maybe now a better understanding?
Yeah, I can't answer that other than, I think it's a little too early to make that proclamation, but I do think that, he's going to be a more productive player. I don't think, particularly now that we know that it's going to be a partial season for Kadarius Toney, I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that Sky Moore is going to leave the Chiefs wide receivers, taking Travis Kelce out of the equation. I don't think it's too early to suggest he's going to leave the Chiefs wide receivers in catches. Now, what that number is going to be or what kind of impact he's going to have, I don't know. That I'm a little less certain about. I think a guy like maybe Richie James or even Rashee Rice might have a bigger impact than Moore does. But on a down-to-down basis, I think he'll be there for the Chiefs. I think he'll be a factor for them. But it's still a little bit premature to go ahead and to say that with him. But I do feel like he's as good a candidate as the Chiefs have right now to be their most productive wide receiver in terms of number of catches.
And it wasn't like the Chiefs, didn't go to Sky Moore or look his way from time to time when he was out there. There were a couple times, I think the 49ers game where there was an interception by Patrick Mahomes. It was towards Sky Moore, and the safety came underneath Sky Moore, and that was one of those to where he was supposed to adjust his route based on where the safety was. Mahomes thought he would be at a certain spot. He wasn't. It's an interception. Looks like a terrible throw and a terrible decision by Patrick Mahomes, and sort of that trust being there. But Sky Moore, in the minimal snaps that he played, he still got 33 targets last year. And in comparison, like MVS felt like he played every snap last year. He got 80. So, I mean, Juju, had some times where he missed. McCole Hardman missed games. Kadarius Toney missed different games. Sky Moore was a rookie. And MVS out there for 17 games, got 80 targets throughout the entire season. So the targets are there. There's a certain thing that they want from MVS. And even when he, as a veteran, had more of an opportunity to be the guy to step up, he certainly did it against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, and that was awesome and will always be remembered around here. But he wasn't a guy that was going to be a high volume, let's just go and feed this particular guy.
No.
But Sky Moore didn't get a whole lot of reps, but he got 33 targets. I don't know that it was a worry from Mahomes, like I'm not going to throw his way, but if the trust is there and Mahomes finds him to be open, because throwing the ball to him 33 times means you feel like there's at least some ability. There's some level of him being able to get open against NFL defenses.
Yeah, and I think there's more. He's got a better shot of producing that kind of play for the Chiefs than anybody else they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Kadarius Toney was ever going to be a high volume guy either. I don't know that he was going to get a bunch of targets or a ton of catches. The thing with him was obviously going to be the big plays.
Mm-hmm.
But now, if it's okay, so if we're going to take Toney out of the mix because he's not going to have a full season, who's it going to be then? Who's going to be the Chiefs' leading wide receiver? Is it going to be Rice? I can't make that leap yet. Is it going to be Richie James? I can't make that leap yet. And the guy who's going to end up playing the most right now is going to be Sky Moore. So I'll stick with Sky Moore. I think I do think he'll have a big year in terms of the times the ball's coming his way and the catches he gets. Now, again, what the impact of those catches are, we'll have to see. I don't know that he's going to be a big play producer or anything like that frequently, but still, I do feel like on a down-to-down basis, he's right now the Chiefs' number one receiver.
Yeah, I think he can be the wide receiver security blanket of what just a general sort of security blanket that Travis Kelce is to Patrick Mahomes. For lack of a better term, I mean, obviously Travis Kelce is much more than that, as being, the weapon that he is, and that connection that Mahomes and Kelce has, or what they have is out there on the field, and being able to read the defenses together and know how to adjust in real time. But for Sky Moore, if he's able to gain separation, which he's done a pretty good job of, at least advanced metrics show that he's pretty good, even last year as a rookie, of separating at the line of scrimmage from defensive backs, and he doesn't drop the football, that could be something to where Mahomes has some more trust in him if he thinks he's going to be there. But you're right, the next question would be, what do you get after he catches the ball? Because that trust, that sort of instinctual feel of where Tyreek was going to be, the feel that he has of where Travis Kelce is going to be. He's got a year with MVS, a year with Sky Moore, half a year with Kadarius Toney, and no games with Rashee Rice or Justin Ross or Richie James. Like, there's not going to be that guy. And they had it a little bit with McCole Hardman, but he wasn't exactly the guy to step up. That guy to where Mahomes sort of has that connection immediately that's as high as Hill and Kelce. I think Sky Moore can at least offer maybe a security blanket to a degree of his ability to gain separation, and he just doesn't drop the football.
Yeah, and there's some value in that. There's value in being a guy the quarterback counts on from down to down, and there doesn't have to be a bunch of huge plays or a bunch of touchdowns or anything like that. I mean, don't get me wrong; those things are nice, but I feel like the Chiefs have better candidates, stronger candidates to be that kind of player. MVS would be one, maybe Richie James would be another, maybe even Rashee Rice, but. In terms of just the guy who's going to be there, play in, play out, more or less like Juju was last season, I see Sky Moore being the strongest candidate for that right now.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. The pads are not on, we know that, but what have you seen from Rashee Rice so far in camp?
Yeah, I mean, there was that, much publicized barf session, that first rookie practice, but, he's bounced back pretty well. Kind of impressed with what I've seen with him. The next step for him is to do it day after day after day after day, like the Chiefs do up here. But I think there's something to his game, and I think he's going to be a part of things. I feel pretty comfortable already thinking that he's going to be particularly with Tony out now, he's going to be a kind of a go-to guy that the Chiefs will be looking to him for more. And it's a question of whether he can handle it. You know, it's tough on rookies to play that position, and it's mainly I think his playing time will be limited by how much he knows and how comfortable he is, and whether he's on the same page with Mahomes or not. But other than that, if those issues get resolved, I could see him playing a considerable amount.
So then the expectation would be a better year numbers-wise, the counting numbers-wise, than Sky Moore. 22 catches, 250 yards, no touchdowns for Sky Moore. Is that minimum, like floor for what Rashee Rice can be this year in your mind, of certainly an opportunity being there?
Well, those catches have to come from somewhere. And, I'm already giving up on Kadarius Toney here, but I don't know when he's going to be back, or once he does come back, how long he's going to be in the lineup.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to make those catches, and I think I think the Chiefs are maybe headed for a little bit of trouble if his numbers aren't better. Rice's numbers aren't better than what Sky Moore's are or were last year. The Chiefs need him. They need Rashee Rice. I mean, this is kind of they have some depth here, and now the Richie James signing really looks big for the Chiefs. But I think if Rice is just kind of a small-time player in this, that either means good news because somebody else stepped up, or bad news that the Chiefs may be struggling a little bit.
I think the numbers for Rashee Rice can be better than Sky Moore this year based on skill set. Because, Sky Moore, one of the things that he brought to the table was, again, one of the better in the draft last year of separation at the line of scrimmage, route running, things like that. Okay, so he catches the ball, really good route runner. Well, in the Chiefs' offense, it's not only running the routes on paper, but how you run the routes, and as we've talked about, the adjustments that have to happen in real time. So his skill set was one that he's open, throw him the ball, he's going to catch it, he's pretty good at getting open. But over the course of the season, if you don't have the trust from the quarterback, or if you're not in the right spot because the adjustment should have been made here or there, you're not getting the ball. Rashee Rice, his skill set is being able to make contested catches, which means that, do you have to gain separation? Do you have to be a precise route runner? Can you be a guy that's just simply down the sideline and Mahomes says, I'm going to give it a shot? The touchdown they showed over L'Jarius Sneed, that's a video that's out there. That was just Rashee Rice running an over route. He was just started on the left side of the line as a slot, big slot, and then ran an over route and beats L'Jarius Sneed. And Mahomes puts it there. He gets the catch 2 feet down or one knee down, and it's a touchdown. One of the other ones was Trent McDuffie towards the back of the end zone and makes a big catch. Those aren't really ones where, okay, I've got to adjust here or there based on this. I've got to beat this guy over the top this way and then go and make the catch. And he's a contested catch receiver, which to me is a skill set that has a better chance of the numbers being there, because Mahomes can just take a shot from time to time and throw it your way and let you catch it while you're out there.
And here's another thing that I think is going to help him. The Chiefs seem willing to – they like the way he runs with the ball in his hands. So they seem to be willing with Rice to try to get him the ball in ways where they can sort of guarantee that he has the ball in his hands. With screen passes, the quick bubble type screens, things like that. Maybe some end arounds. I think that there's going to be more opportunities as a rookie for him to do those kinds of things than there were for Sky Moore last year. So that's another thing that I think he has going in his favor.
I thought it was interesting, Matt Nagy talking about one of the adjustments for Rashee Rice is, they're looking for baby steps of growth each day and, learning the offense, the stuff that we talk about a lot, but said, in college, coming from the no huddle, you're now running back to a huddle. And then you're running out of the huddle to whichever side, and then you've got, motion and things like that, and then you've got to actually run the route, whereas in college, you'd run the route, and then you'd run right back to the numbers at the line of scrimmage and wait for the quarterback to yell out or signal whatever you're doing, and then you would run your route. There's no motioning or a lot of that stuff. It's I'm going to run my route now. I run back to the line of scrimmage on this side of the field, and then I run my route again. I thought that was an interesting point by Matt Nagy of just there's an added element of Rashee Rice getting used to an offense rather than what he did in college.
Yeah, there is, and that's all part of the learning curve that Nagy was talking about, and we've been talking about it. It's just all a matter of how quickly he can assemble all this and become comfortable and get on the same page with the quarterback and all that. And, so I think it's still too early to have the answers to at least some of those questions. But, there's some skills there. There's no doubt that, the Chiefs are getting they seem to have gotten the player they thought they were getting. Now it's just a matter of him putting it all together. And how quickly that can happen.
Yeah, Adam Teich from ESPN is our guest. Let's take a timeout. We will come back and we will talk about the pads going on Friday. Not on Chris Jones because he's not there. So we'll talk about some of those things. Training camp coverage continues to be brought to you by Barstool Sportsbook, Bud Light, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810.
Continue radio on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Drake. We're talking with Adam Teicher from ESPN, Chiefs Insider. He's there in St. Joe. All right, Adam, next time the Chiefs are out there on the field, they get the day off tomorrow, but next time they're out there on the field, the pads will be on. You've been to so many of these training camps, Adam. What do you look for when you're watching a practice with the pads on? What are your observations? What are you looking for out there on the field?
Well, that's when you really start to learn about the linemen on both sides of the ball, really, and running backs. That's a real telling sign. Is what do they do with the pads on? It's a lot easier to play that position when you don't have to worry about anybody hitting you. So it's just sort of a better education for those guys and what they can handle and all that. The Chiefs have a one-on-one pass rush, pass block drill, and most other teams do it as well. It's not just the Chiefs, but it's really instructive. You really can learn a lot about a player, particularly the offensive linemen, but also defensive players. What they can do and what they're struggling with and what their strengths are. I remember when a lot of times you win some, you lose some in these one-on-one battles. But when Creed Humphrey was a rookie, he would just kick everybody's butt in these things. He would just dominate those drills. No one could get an inch on Creed Humphrey. And you knew right away that this guy had everything it took to become a very, very good NFL player. So those are the kinds of things you can learn about linemen, particularly once the pads come on, because it's kind of hard to tell just from watching what you're looking at and whether they're doing things the right way, what they're capable of when there's no pads on and they're not hitting each other.
Adam Teicher from ESPN is our guest. Mentioned that not wearing the pads will be Chris Jones until he shows up to camp, when, if, all of that stuff. What was your reaction and your opinion now as it's now been 5 practices in for the Chiefs, and Chris Jones did not report to camp. There's still the contract dispute, now officially a holdout, and even Andy Reid saying that he was surprised a little bit that Chris Jones wasn't there to report on Friday.
Yeah, well, the fact that he's not here tells me he's pretty convicted. I mean, there was predictions, well, if he doesn't have a deal, he'd do the hold-in thing. Mm-hmm. But I think this takes more conviction in your position. I really do. Not only are you forfeiting $50,000 a day, but you're sort of indicating that, you're serious about this. So I think this thing is maybe a little more serious than we thought. And, it's not that big of a deal in the bigger picture that Chris Jones is not here right now, as long as he shows up at some point. But, he's not missing a whole lot. I feel like he's got plenty of time to make up what he's lost. But when is the deadline now? How much time does he need to get himself ready for a season and be ready to play? There's a lot of studies that'll show you that guys who miss most or all of training camp get hurt during the season at a much higher rate than guys who are around for most of training camp. So, at some point that becomes a concern if you're the Chiefs about Chris Jones. So, I don't think the thing is at a crisis point yet. But if this continues on, then I think it certainly could. It's just a matter of when that point really comes.
Yeah, I heard a long time ago, I don't remember even who said it, but they said, the NFL players, if you play a long time, maybe one chance to miss a training camp. Like you get one chance, and maybe some players take advantage of that. I don't know if Chris Jones is looking at the temperature right now of 100 degrees and humidity and like, you know what? I'm going to be here in Miami for another week. Brett, we're good. We're going to get this thing done, just not until August 5th. That's when we're going to get this thing done. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but, I kid, but his contract and reports of wanting $30 million and the right now the second highest paid defensive tackle is $24 million, but obviously you're probably going to be closer to Aaron Donald because he's closer to an Aaron Donald player, and there's a gap between he and whoever the third best is going to be in the NFL, which whichever somebody chooses. But the interesting part about this is, while you and I have talked about when Brett Veach and the front office have got to a point and they've said this is the value and we're willing to walk. Trent Williams, this is the value. Okay, we can't go anymore. You're signing with San Francisco. Tyreek Hill, On and on and on that we've seen them, get to a point. Orlando Brown, that we're not going to give you more. This seems to be the only one that the Chiefs, I don't feel like, are in that position. That they aren't really or have ever been in this regime in the business of being in a corner. And I feel like that's what's going on with Chris Jones right now. I think he knows it. His representatives know it. The leverage that's there, what he does for this defense. And this ain't the time to be trading somebody because you can't recoup some of those draft picks early to make up for that. This is one of the few instances where the Chiefs are in this position that I don't think they're very familiar with being in.
Yeah, no, and I think there are some troubling things about this. The Chiefs knew this was coming. They maybe didn't know Chris Jones was going to hold out, but they knew he wanted a new contract. That's not news to the Chiefs. So they've known for some time that this thing was coming down the road. And, when they saw it with Tyreek Hill, they abruptly changed course and said, we're trading him. We're going to do what we can in March to get what we can for him, and we're out. But so to me, if they weren't prepared to take care of Chris Jones, why wouldn't you try to trade him when you traded Tyreek Hill a year later, but in March? The fact that Chiefs didn't trade Chris Jones without having an extension for him, it indicates to me they felt like this wasn't going to be a huge issue for them. They'd be able to handle this. They could handle Chris Jones's demands. They would take care of him when the time came. And the time has come, and that hasn't happened. So, what were the Chiefs thinking? I'm curious as to, what they think about that because, they could have avoided this by trying to deal Chris Jones a few months ago when there was still, the teams were flush with money and they could have gotten theoretically some draft picks that would have helped them this year and like they did with the Tyreek Hill trade. So, I'm with you. This one, hey, let's see how it gets resolved and when it gets resolved. But right now, this one has the feel of the Chiefs maybe not handling it the way they should have.
I think the Chiefs and Chris Jones's camp, I think they've probably both been aware of what the other side's offering or wanting. Where I don't think it's if Chris Jones wants $30 million, I don't think the Chiefs found out he wanted $30 million last Friday per year.
Nope.
I think they've known about this for some time. And even at the ring ceremony when Brett Veach was like, well, we've got some time. We got a great relationship with his representatives. And these things typically get done the week before training camp or right during the first week there of training camp, which that comment didn't stick out to me at the time in mid-June. But hearing it again of him saying right during the first part of training camp, which is what we're in right now, he didn't necessarily say, well, these things get done before training camp or during training camp they get done. Again, I don't know that they thought he was going to hold out, but I think they've known what Chris Jones has wanted. So if they weren't going to trade him earlier, I think there was a confidence that maybe they could either get to that number if they just had to take their medicine, or the longer the negotiation goes, then you can come to some sort of an agreement. And the other part that I do wonder, with more information and knowledge now of Tyreek Hill, because it all needed to be said, Adam, I do wonder if when Tyreek Hill was asking for those things, if the Chiefs immediately reversed course and said, okay, we're moving on from Tyreek Hill, if they felt like there was more of a chance of him being a distraction around the team, not having that contract, or maybe there's more of a trust that Chris Jones, I know he's holding out, but as far as being like a distraction or malcontent, for lack of a better term, because we found out in the podcast, Adam, that Tyreek wasn't happy with some of his usage, that he was complaining about not getting the ball often and how he's being used in different games and the going and seeing his family and the Chiefs maybe not wanting him to go see his family. And maybe that relationship wasn't as, kumbaya and amazing as maybe it felt like on the outside, as opposed to Chris Jones seems as happy to be a Chief as it gets and is constantly thanking the organization and thanking Brett Veach and talking about that often, that I don't know that Chris Jones is unhappy or wants to test the water somewhere else or wants to go somewhere else or feels like he's been disrespected in any way with the organization.
Yeah, and Chris Jones has come out and said more than once, I think, that he wants to play his whole career with the Chiefs. That he really doesn't want to play for any other team, and I don't recall Tyreek Hill ever saying that when he was playing here. So there is that difference. But is it possible the Chiefs underestimated his will in this thing?
Yeah.
When Andy Reid says he's surprised that Chris Jones didn't show up, that tells me they maybe underestimated him and his resolve to get this contract. That they thought he'd be a hold-in, and then maybe they could work on him a little bit, while he was here. In terms of, hey, we really want you, Chris. We really, 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 really want you. Just take the deal. Just take it. Let's get you out on the field and play. Well, he's not getting that right now. He's not here, and so I think when Andy Reid said, "Yeah, I'm surprised by this," that the Chiefs. This part of the negotiation caught them by surprise, and maybe if they're guilty of anything, it's not completely understanding how resolved Chris Jones is to get the deal that he wants.
Is there a time where it becomes like, okay, he's holding out, so this is clearly, the report being, quote, far apart, which is, far apart, it means something different to a lot of different people. Annual average value, guaranteed money, 3-year cash, total dollars, years, all of those things can be far apart. But Tim Grunhard on yesterday with the program, yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, but was talking about, I think it might have been Monday actually, the concern level for him, not really there, but you start to get into preseason games, third preseason game, okay, now you're really, concerned about this thing. It doesn't seem to be, registering on the concern radar of like panic or, okay, there's some issues going on. When does it rise to that level for you? Is it when you start to get into preseason games? Is it, okay, third preseason game is over and they've still got a couple of weeks, with that week off or whatever, but he's not in camp? When does it rise to the level of, okay, there's a serious problem, not just that they're far apart, but there's an issue here between the two?
Yeah. Well, that's like what I was talking about earlier. There will come that point. I don't know exactly when that would be. I guess around the first preseason game, maybe that's a reasonable time to think, okay, there's a real problem here. This is going to last. At least even if he signs at this point, the impact of this is going to last into the regular season because he won't be ready to go when the regular season starts. There's going to come that point, and maybe it is the first preseason game or next weekend, maybe. That might be another logical time, but again, it's not a crisis situation right now in the bigger picture that he's not here. But as long as it gets resolved in time, then it becomes a crisis, and I that time is coming sooner rather than later.
Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, appreciate it as always, sir. Enjoy the off day tomorrow, and then pads coming on Friday. We can see some actual football going on up there in St. Joe. So thank you for the time as always, man. We'll be continuing to check out the coverage and everything, and we will talk next week.
All right, Jason, good stuff. We'll talk to you then.
Absolutely. There's Adam Teicher there in St. Joe. Great job covering the Chiefs in training camp. Off day tomorrow, and then first padded practice will be on Friday. Training camp coverage presented by Barstool Sportsbook, Bud Light, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, wrapping up the show next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Adam Teicher from ESPN. Talking some Chiefs football. Training camp continues. Off day tomorrow. Pads going on. Football. Sundays in the snow. Referee whistle blow. Weekend Warriors toe-to-toe. Football. You won't get that reference.
No, I just thought you was a brilliant song. I was really just enjoying the vibe.
1,000 years. You will not get that reference. Text 913-912-4810 says, we were talking about the Bengals and the Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and what they're going to do. Text says, just curious, is Josh aware the Chiefs could have drafted T. Higgins?
People keep saying that, and I just don't think that's possibly true because
Can't be.
Only good players go in the first round,
That's
and,
right.
and the pick that they used was like a luxury pick at a position they didn't. I mean, it wasn't like a big deal. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure T. Higgins and Michael Pittman were never like within range of the Chiefs. So I don't think that texter's right.
They were not.
They're going to have T. Higgins on this team.
913-912-4810.
Those catches have to go somewhere. They could have gone to T. Higgins.
Text says, do we have time to play this clip? LOL. You always end up playing them anyways. That's you know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Text says, this little piggy went to the market. This little piggy got bags. This little piggy got cut and picked up by the Jags. All right. Well done, Texter.
Good
Appreciate
work.
That. We
Love
like
a
the story
limerick.
rhymes coming up today. The nursery rhymes, I should say, coming up today. You know what's coming up today in the program?
Whoa, what's coming up today in the program?
It is Intern Jeopardy.
What is Intern Jeopardy?
It's a game that they play in the program in the afternoon with interns, and they do just like the Jeopardy game and ask them questions and stuff, and then they see who the smartest intern is, and then the show that the intern is on gets $500 from each Curtis, Seren, and Adam. That's what is Intern Jeopardy, right?
I was doing a form of a question to try to get in the mood for the game.
Reed, get in here.
But Reed, come here.
Reed, come here. Reed.
Here's the thing, because now with all this cash on the table, which I'm pretty sure is how it goes, I'm hoping that Reed's ready for the moment.
Yeah.
He was sort of ready on Monday.
Monday, because Reed is in as a wild card team. Okay. Speaking of wild card teams, he's a Jets fan,
Yeah,
so
that's
they're
a
not
good
winning the
point.
division, so have to be a wild card. Go ahead and grab that microphone, Reed. So you're playing
in
today.
the studio without headphones. We're off to a good start.
That's fine. He doesn't need headphones. You don't need to give him the headphones. Don't worry about it, Josh. He doesn't need headphones. We're just
He doesn't
talking.
need headphones.
We're not taking any phone calls or anything. He's good.
First day.
Where's your confidence level, Reed? I know you were talking a lot of trash on Monday, but now you got to show back up. Where's the confidence level?
So I haven't taken this second chance lightly.
Okay.
I have done some Jeopardy studying because I had no idea how to manage the daily double this last time, which I got it and I got the question right, and I totally whiffed on putting more of my points into it.
Yeah, it was a $600 or a 600-point question,
Correct.
and you wagered $250.
Yes, because I did not know what I was doing.
Yeah,
but now I do, and so
and if
that
it's a
is-
daily double in the first round, do the true daily double. Bet it all.
Bet it all.
Bet it all. You've got plenty of time to catch up in the second, in the double Jeopardy. Okay, so you're figuring some of those strategies out.
Yes, yeah, I've watched a lot of Jeopardy things now.
Wow,
He's been in a very dark room just watching Ken Jennings, just grinding that film.
Well, he's a Jets fan, so he's had the darkness retreat.
And I've studied a bit of some KC things.
Good idea.
Yeah, I watched a video that was the history of Chiefs quarterbacks before Patrick Mahomes.
Oh yeah, so
and
you're
immediately the guy dissed on the Jets for no reason. He was talking about the Chiefs' path to the fourth Super Bowl.
Yeah, right.
And that they played the Jets, the defending Super Bowl champions. And
Yeah.
he goes, I don't think I'm ever going to say that again in the rest of my life. I was like, come on.
It might be
come on,
true.
man.
I mean,
He's
it's,
right, though.
It's tough. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know that I would ever say defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in my life. I've got to say it twice now in my life, so that's good. You never know how fortunes change and they turn, and it could all turn today in Jeopardy for you. Are you good and more prepared to answer in the form of a question?
Oh, yeah. I didn't
Nope,
really
you should have said,
have
what
any-
is, yeah. Damn it.
I tried.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness, Reed.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, I tried to set it up on a
really
tee for you. It's right there. But you're good, though.
I am, yeah. What is I am, yes.
Thank you.
Killian really struggled with it, which he's in the final.
But
I
here's
did
the
not.
thing.
Yeah, I think this has to go to appeals.
They said there are no mulligans in the championship round of Jeopardy. So Killian, who I think got roughly 8,000 points off of answering and then going back and putting it in the form of a question. is playing in the championship. But there are going to be no mulligans. So as soon as your name is called, the one thing that I think happens with Intern Jeopardy is as soon as your name is called that you got to get Reed. All right, Reed. And then you immediately answer the question. Not you, but that happens a lot with Intern Jeopardy. You can take your time. You've already been called on. You don't have to be the first in at that point, and you got it. Take your time. What is... but you were pretty good at answering the form of a question. I'll give you that.
You know, I wasn't going to say it to Saran, and I won't.
Good start.
But on the final Jeopardy question, which is what I got right and is what saved me to become the wild card, I did not phrase it in the form of a question, but he, like I said, 10 and 42, which we're talking about Royals Hall of Fame numbers, and Saran goes, oh, yeah, what is 10 and 42? I can't believe you got it right.
And I was very proud of you, by the way.
I was also proud of
very
myself.
Proud of you that you got those numbers.
But yeah, I won't.
And retired.
Final Jeopardy will also be in the form of a question. I won't forget it.
Have you been doing some studying around 810?
Yes, I just found out that this thing has been going for 101 years, which is spectacular.
That's
that
very
awesome.
good. Now, something that you might want to think of is the two categories of 810 and the questions that have already been used. You might want to think of people around here who have not been included in those categories and those questions yet. Like the person running the board right there.
I figured he was going to be a question.
Okay, there you go, Reed. You're already
the
doing
Drake.
Okay, yeah. Don't let the others know.
Yeah, no, don't give out any more info.
Don't give out any more info. But if you're
why
already
is he called the Drake? Ooh, nobody knows.
Whoa, hey, come on. He loves the music.
Yeah, he's a
That's
big
why
Drake fan.
everybody knows that. That's not true.
His
Reed.
hotline blinks.
We'll tell you off the air as to why that is. Okay, so you feel confident. You feel ready. You're representing the zone.
Humbly confident, you know.
So
like
you weren't very humble on Monday, but that's fine. That you gained some humility.
I
over
didn't
the
win.
last...
I'm the only guy there that will have not won, so I'm coming in with that understanding.
Point.
You're the wild card team.
Wild card.
You know who you're reminding me of right now, Reed?
Who's that?
Those pesky New York Giants that went on, won Super Bowls. Eli Manning from the wild card spot, the greatest team in New York football history.
It's my dad's favorite.
Sounds like your dad has good taste.
Reed is wearing a Jets Vinny Pasquantino jersey. So he's got that going for him already.
Vinny said that he liked it on Twitter. I sent him a picture of it, and he responded. So.
He has interacted with Vinny Pasquantino on Twitter.
Take that, other interns.
I would like the 810 category for 500. This intern interacted with, and Reed's going, who was it? Who did it? Man, I'll figure it out. All right.
Who is me?
Best of luck. What time today?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Intern Final Jeopardy. Let's go, Reed. Nicknamed Reed. Yeah, that's right. Reed.
Hey, Chiefs fans. Are you looking for the best place to stay for training camp? Check out Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center in St. Joseph, Missouri. They've got unmatched amenities and lodge-like accommodations that you and your family will enjoy, with complimentary hot breakfast, an indoor-outdoor pool, and free Wi-Fi. Make Camp in St. Joe your next mini vacation. Book your stay today at Stony Creek Hotel.